I don't believe that you own your children, that you're in control of your children, that you are even above your children. I believe that parenting is one of the biggest responsibilities on the planet, because what you're doing is you're raising an individual.
Yeah.
The idea of parenting is not to raise people that live in this house for the rest of their lives and turn out to be carbon copies of me and my husband, Chris. The idea is to raise individuals that grow up having the capability to discover who they are, to make decisions, to think critically, to have opinions, to be kind to people. And so it's a very difficult parenting philosophy, because it means you're not dictating what's happening, you're guiding what's happening. Now, if something's dangerous, if it's destructive, if it's immoral, if it's illegal, I get final say. I tell you what to think and do. You live in my house, or our house, Chris and my house, and so you still have to make your bed, you still have to do your laundry, you still have to abide by the rules of the house. But we are teaching our kids to think for themselves. We're teaching them how to question authority. We're teaching them how to take responsibility for their actions. And so what happens is, just last night we had a major discussion with our 17-year-old, because she's going to be a senior in high school.
Right.
We just got back from a family trip. Next week, field hockey starts, and school's off, and senior year has begun. And this is the week for college applications.
Right.
Period. This is it. And she didn't want to spend all day, every day, going into the library, sitting down and working on the things she needed to do. And we got into this back and forth because we have trained her to ask why. And we have trained her to state her opinion. And we have taught her to raise her voice and to question when things don't align with either her expectations or her values. Not entitled, just fully responsible for what she's doing, when she's doing it, and thinking through. And of course, we won the argument. And of course, she's sitting at the library right now. But having her go and explain to us, well, I don't want to be there all day because I haven't seen my friends all summer, because I've been working and because I've been a counselor, and this is the one. And that's a valid concern for an 18-year-old. So we went back and forth about the longer term issue, and the fact that in life you have to make long-term decisions, which means you're going to be pissed off in the short term. And then we said to her, please tell us, what would you rather?
Right.
Would you rather spend this week and be with your friends and be a complete freak for the next 3 months because school started and you're not done with the most stressful thing you've ever done in your entire life, which is college applications? Or would you rather sit your ass at the library, get this done, and have the entire fall of your senior year to play with your friends, and you're the only kid that's not stressed out because your applications are done? You choose.
Right. Short-term pain for long-term pleasure.
But see, the choice was hers, but we had the conversation about cause and effect.
Yeah.
And most parents are like, don't do as I say, don't do as I do as I say, and then they show you a completely different example. And they also say, because I said so. And if you say, because I said so, you're not teaching your kids cause and effect. You're teaching them, I'm right, you're wrong. And that's why most kids are like this the second they get to college.
Yeah.
One of our vlogs that went up was the fear of disappointing people, how to get over that. And we got an awesome comment on it that said, Mel, are you saying that the parents are partly responsible in triggering their kids' fear to disappoint? If so, how can we parents avoid that while instilling open communication and discipline within the family?
It's a really great question. And I think over the last 20 years, raising 3 kids with Chris, we've certainly learned some things that work and things that don't work. And the short answer is, yeah, of course we're responsible for creating the fear of disappointment, particularly if we're judgy. And at the same time, I don't care how nice you are to the kids, at some point you're going to screw something up. They're going to be worried about upsetting you, and then they're going to start to manage that. I think every human being on some level is afraid of disappointing people, and they do things in order to avoid judgment, reaction, disappointment. It's part of being a human being. And look, I think every one of us should go talk to a professional at some point and sort out the stories that we made up about our childhood, and also create with professional help this next chapter of your life. That said, there are two things that my husband and I do that have fundamentally changed how we parent, and I believe it is responsible for a remarkable relationship that we have with our kids. The first one is this concept of your kids aren't yours. So many people look at their kids and think, oh, that's mini me, and everything my kid does is a reflection of me, and they got to go to the right school because that's a reflection on me, and they got to behave the right way because that's a reflection on me. Back up a second. Think about what the goal of parenting is. The goal of parenting is to launch your kids into the world as independent human beings. And so when you parent from a perspective of they're not mini yous, they have different experiences, they have a different personality, they have a different brain, they have different DNA, and your job isn't to impose everything you would do on them. It's to teach your kids, this is what I believe, it's to teach your kids how to make decisions for themselves, how to live with the consequences of their decision, how to be a human being that has empathy and kindness, how to be a critical thinker. You teach kids that by modeling it. And what's helped me a lot to switch from a top-down, do what I say, not what I do kind of parenting to being more of a guide in teaching my kids how to be decision makers and critical thinkers and to really discover who they are, is this idea that they're not mine. They're individuals, and my job is to help them figure out how to figure out who they are as individuals. Second thing that's really changed the way that I parent is psychological safety. And it's this really important concept that's both applicable in work and life. And that is, if you want to have incredible influence over people, you need to operate in a way where you create a space that it's psychologically safe for people to come to you with the hard stuff. That if somebody comes to you, if your kid comes to you with the hard stuff, you're not judgmental. You're not bashing them. That you actually have the presence of mind to acknowledge them first for coming to you with the hard stuff, to validate their feelings and experiences, and then help them with the decision making. Let me give you just a super quick example of what I'm talking about to try to highlight the distinction between controlling your kid versus teaching your kid. My son Oakley came home from the dentist. He's got braces, and he smiled and his mouth was full of pink rubber bands. I mean, it was like, boom, a flash of pink rubber bands. Now, if you're the kind of person that controls your kids and everything they do is a reflection on you, a lot of parents would be bothered by their son having pink rubber bands on their braces. And the reason why is they want to control what their kids do. They think that having a son with pink rubber bands on their braces is some kind of reflection on you, and they would immediately judge it, right? Why did you do that? That kind of reaction to something that your kid does, the judgmental one, that always backfires, because what you do is you squash your kid's spirit when you come from judgment. The better place, I think, the more powerful place to come from is curiosity. So the judgy why is why. The curious, I'm your guide, I'm teaching you how to make decisions, why is this one? Oh, pink. So why'd you do that? What you're doing when you have that kind of reaction is, first of all, you're letting your kid make their decisions, and now by asking that kind of question, because you realize that they're an individual, they're making choices for themselves. When you come from the curious why, now you've opened up a dialogue. And what I discovered from Oak is that the reason why he had done that is his best friend had had a really hard day and her favorite color was pink. And so when he showed up at school the next day, he wanted to cheer her up. How freaking cool is that? Now, had I come from the judgy, my son doesn't wear pink on his braces, I would have just shut down this kid's spirit, and I would have taught him something. Don't talk to mom, because she's judgy, and I don't want to disappoint her, and I don't want her to react. Look, are you going to have to make tough decisions? Are you going to have to correct behavior? Absolutely. But there's a difference between being a parent and the moments when you need to punish and teach, and the day in and day out engagement with your kid that is either going going to create deeper connection to this individual that you're raising, or is going to push them away as you communicate that the only thing that matters to you is your rules. It's not easy to do.
It's not easy to do. It's not easy to do in any sense of the term. Psychological safety, coming from a place that's, I want to raise individuals and I'm not going to let my emotions overtake me. That is one of the most difficult things, but it is the most beneficial to raising human beings that can go out into the world and do it on their own.
Here's another example. A lot of parents tell their kids, if you're going to drink, I just don't want you to drive. Just call me. No questions asked, right? So then fast forward a couple months and your kid calls you or their friends call you and they're plowed. And you have to get out of bed at 1 o'clock in the morning and drive across town to pick them up. The next morning when you see them, do you punish them? In my house, no, because they did exactly what I asked them to do. And I'm teaching them the important lesson around responsibility. If you tell your kid that they can come to you for anything, whether it's to talk about sex or talk about drugs or to deal with alcohol or talk about something that is going on in the school, and you invalidate them or you go back on your word, that is the opposite of psychological safety. You're just training your kids that they shouldn't come to you, they can't come to you, and guess what? They won't come to you. So I hope that helps. Yes, we screw our kids up, every one of us, but try that on and let me know what you think. Just see if that changes your parenting a little bit. Are you the kind of person that thinks your kids need to do exactly what you say but not what you do? Are you the kind of person that feels like, yeah, that's true, I am raising individuals and I do want them to think for themselves and I haven't been thinking much about that? I would love to hear your comments, and of course we would love to get more of your questions. We're talking about basically going on a healing journey, and we're talking about how past programming as you're raised gets stored in your nervous system, and that starts to dictate how you respond to just about anything with your unconscious mind. And this is not about making your parents wrong. Most parents did the best that they could with the programming that they had and with the stressors they were facing. Let's talk first about what are the 3 fundamental needs that every child has. And what happens to you as a child if these 3 fundamental needs are not met?
Being seen, being heard, and given the space, I think is the best way to word it, to be authentically expressed, to be acknowledged as a different, authentic being than everyone else around you, because that's what we all are. We're all different and unique. Those are our needs: to be seen, to be heard, and to be authentically expressed, right? If you don't have a parent who's not only teaching you how to care for your unique physical body, which means you have different needs, nutritional needs, you like different things, your body does well with different levels of sleep than other people, right? If you don't have a parent that's helping you to be seen in that way, to explore, right, your physical needs, you're probably not going to know how to connect with your body and listen to your body.
Everybody needs to go through some form of reparenting, because for better or for worse, you were conditioned by your parents to believe certain things, to have certain behavior patterns, and to have certain beliefs about yourself. And if you weren't seen, if you weren't heard, if you weren't given the space to be truly yourself, and even worse, if those things were denied to you out of abuse or abandonment, that is trauma. All of us, in order to reclaim ourselves, in order to stop betraying ourselves, in order to live a life that is aligned with our truth and our values and our hopes and dreams, there is a major amount of work you got to do with the patterns of behavior and beliefs that you have that are somebody else's. What are some simple steps that you can take right now to start a very small healing journey to try to reclaim your conscious mind in a moment when the world is triggering all this stuff?
You know, we are so trained to live in autopilot. Many of us are so dissociated. We haven't practiced living consciously. I suggest a meditation practice because when my eyes are closed, when maybe I'm sitting quietly, right, I have all of my focus on my internal world. Start with 1 minute. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. There's another way we can do it during our day, which is a commitment to practice one conscious moment in our day. To set up an alert in their phone, and when their phone goes off, right, it buzzes, check in with where your attention is. And chances are your attention is going to be not probably on what you're doing. If you like the idea of sitting and meditating, that is amazing. Start small. If not, when that buzzer goes off and I come to realize, oh, I was worrying about tomorrow in my head, bringing your attention back to what are you doing? Bring your attention into your body. Now you've become conscious. We all need to create a habit of getting out of that autopilot, of living life from that conscious part of our mind. That's what's going to give you the choice in those moments of reactivity.
Mel, how do I manage emotions effectively so they don't blow up and hurt the people I love the most? I get triggered all the time by my emotions, and here's how you deal with them. In fact, the place that I get the most triggered is getting frustrated with my kids. And I don't want to be that kind of mom. I don't want to be the kind of mom that's constantly frazzled, that's snapping at my kids, that resents my husband. I really want to have the best of me reserved for my family. But isn't it the truth that often it's the people that we love the most that we end up trashing on all the time? So here's how you're going to manage your emotions. Number one, you cannot control the that's happening around you. There's always going to be things that happen that you can't control. That's okay, that's life. Understand that you can always control what you think and what you do in response to the things that are happening. So, what does that mean? It means that if you're the kind of person that gets triggered easily, you get pissed off, you snap at people, you build resentment, you're going to use the 5-second rule. You're going to use the 5-second rule the second you feel that wave of emotion. And I know exactly what you're feeling. You know how that thing happens with the people that you love where you see them and you just want to kill them? It happens to me too, and it happens to the people who love me. It's normal to have frustrations rise up, but it's a choice to let those emotions make you snap. So what you're going to do the next time you feel your emotions rise up is you're going to count backwards using the 5-second rule. You're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The second you hit 1, your prefrontal cortex should be engaged because we're drawing the focus away from the interior part of your brain and we are awakening your prefrontal cortex. You now have control. You have the ability to choose what you do next. I use this technique to manage my response to the emotional triggers all the time with my kids. When normally in the past, something that they did would make me really upset and I would snap, I now silently count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that alone allows me to collect myself, adjust my tone of voice, and speak in a way that actually is consistent with the kind of parent that I want to be. The other thing that I found is that the more that I interrupt myself from snapping or being triggered by my emotions, the easier it gets. And the second thing that I've noticed is that by simply lowering my tone or slowing down my pace, in other words, being in control of what I'm doing, it is amazing how much more effective I am actually as a parent because I'm not getting emotional. And I think oftentimes with the people that we love the most, we get into these patterns that are really destructive where we're triggered by each other and then we get emotional and then we use our emotions as a justification to not be great with people. And so all of what we're talking about is normal. It's normal to feel frustrated. Letting it make you snap, that's a choice. It's normal to get angry. Letting that be a justification for being or abusive to somebody, that's a choice. And it's a choice you don't have to make when you start to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 manage yourself in response to the things that are triggering you. Today, video 21 is a training that we have been planning for a long time. I am incredibly excited because we are going to be talking to you about kids and anxiety. And if you have a young kid, if you have a teenager, we're going to be covering strategies based on research that will be effective in how you think about anxiety, how you address anxiety, how you help your children build skills around anxiety. And before we get started, I want to say 2 exciting things. Number one, if you're not part of Mindset Reset yet and you want to get our daily emails and you want to be alerted as to the content that we're covering and the tools that we're giving out, go to melrobbins.com/mindsetreset. It's free. We're not selling you anything. We're not trying to get you into a mastermind group or a private Facebook page or a coaching program. That's not what happens. That's not what's happening here. We are putting this content out because we know it makes a difference. When you change how you think, you change your life. And there are very simple science-backed tools that you can learn, that your kids can learn, that you can use for the rest of your life to constantly be reprogramming your default network in your brain. And if you don't know what that is, no problem. All of the videos in Mindset Reset cover it, and you can watch them for free on YouTube. The other reason why you want to sign up for the email is because we are sending and emailing out incredibly amazing resource guides that go along with these free trainings. And today, I'm super excited to tell you that we have this amazing guide that our team put together based on all the research that's out there, called From Worry to Winning: Tools to Help Kids Reclaim Their Superpowers and Beat Anxiety. So if you or somebody in your life has a youngster, so probably 12 and under, 13 and under, who are starting to worry, and the worry is beyond just the normal kids' worries. The worry is starting to interfere with them wanting to go to school or wanting to participate in things. This is absolutely a free resource that you want. The only way to get it, go to melrobbins.com/mindset-reset, and you will get it emailed to you with the links for this video. What does it contain? It contains the top 5 advice that we're going to give about kids and anxiety and tools that you can use. It also has a message for you to help you read and understand what anxiety and worry is and what it isn't. And we also offer you some awesome free resources in the back of this guide to help you further help your kids. What I'm going to cover in today's video is I'm going to cover a bunch of things that I want you to know about anxiety, worry, kids, and teens. And so a couple things that I want to say up front. There is a major difference between a clinical anxiety disorder and the rise of worry and anxiety that is troubling pediatricians, that's troubling parents, that's troubling grandparents, that's troubling teachers around the world. And if you have a child who is starting to have the kind of worry or anxiety that is causing them to no longer be able to be themselves or to do the things that they used to be able to do, like get out of bed, go to school, eat, hang out with their friends, go to sleepovers, if they are starting to withdraw from life, that's not just worry or anxiety. That is a much deeper hole that your child is falling into, and it is incredibly important that you go seek one-to-one counsel from your pediatrician. That's where you start. And that you get your child the one-to-one help that they need. Because what we're going to be talking about today is what anxiety is and how, as a parent, you cannot buy into it when it is the more standard form of anxiety that kids reach for when they're feeling uncertain or they feel out of control. We're going to talk about the need to validate where your kids are and the fact that the only thing that works is to come up with a process, to do a lot of planning, and then to practice the plan. Because when it comes to anxiety and worry, it is critical that you realize that you've got to get out of the habit as a parent of trying to fix what your kid is worried about in the moment, and to pull back and start to teach your child the skill of being able to tolerate uncertainty, the skill of being able to problem solve when they start to get a little bit scared, the skill of being able to ask for help when they're in situations that make them feel worried, instead of just worrying and being anxious and getting you to fix the situation for them. So let's start right there. Just by way of background, everything that we have covered so far in Mindset Reset, the first 20 videos, is relevant to the conversation today. If you haven't watched them, no problem. Don't worry about it. You can go to YouTube at any time. You can go to melrobbins.com/mindset-reset at any time, and you can watch these videos at your leisure and as it works for you and the time that you have. On videos 1 through 8, we covered the science around how we think. We talk about the default network mode in your brain. We talk about how to reprogram it. We talk about how to think this and not that. We talk about all kinds of incredible stuff that will give you foundational knowledge, not just for you, but also foundational knowledge about how people learn how to think and how we get stuck in patterns around thinking and why it's important to recognize those patterns and be deliberate about updating them. We then talked in videos 9 through 11 about your morning routine. And this is important for kids too. You should be plugging your phone in at night, and you should be waking up when the alarm rings, and you should be planning the first 10 minutes of your day without looking at your phone, without turning on the TV. So if your kids are sleeping with their phones, if your kids are coming down with their face in their phones and watching YouTube as they're eating breakfast, that's a problem. And it's a problem that will contribute to their anxiety. And so even the videos 9 through 11 that have to do with evening routines and morning routines and how that impacts your mindset and your worries and the patterns that you think in, majorly critical for you to understand that this is all applicable for your kids too. We started talking about anxiety on video 13, and now we're video 21, so 8 videos in, we're still talking about anxiety. These are really important videos for you to take a look at so that you have a better understanding about how worry can spiral into anxiety. And that worry is the patterns that you think that are negative, and anxiety is when you start to feel those negative patterns as agitation in your body. We talked about triggers in video 14, and that's going to be a very relevant video for you, video 14, because you're going to be, as part of the process of helping your kids build the skill of being able to tolerate uncertainty, part of that process is helping them plan what they're going to do if they face a situation with uncertainty. And that's all about identifying triggers, and that's video 14. Then we talked about anchor thoughts in video 15. And those are the thoughts that help anchor you. It's part of the planning process. It's part of what you're going to practice with your kids. And we're going to explain it all today, but I wanted to be very clear that whether you've been part of Mindset Reset or not, that everything that we have done today is going to empower you as a parent, as an educator, as a grandparent, just as a human being, to understand not only worry and anxiety and your thinking patterns and how to change them so that you can believe in yourself, so that you can be happier, so that you can be more positive and focused. But it's also going to educate and arm and equip you with the confidence and the knowledge to be able to now tweak it and apply it so that it's age appropriate for your kids. So with that gigantic disclaimer, let me talk about kids and anxiety. And when I talk about kids, I'm talking basically from about 13 down. And then after I'm done talking about kids 13 down, I'm going to give you some extra tips for teens, okay? So anxiety, if this is the first time you're thinking about it, anxiety is what happens when you are worrying about something in the future that makes you feel uncertain or makes you feel like you're going to lose control. That's it. Anxiety is when you start worrying about things in the future that make you feel uncertain or make you feel like you're about to lose control, and you start to get a stomach ache, or you start to feel tightness in your throat, or you start to shake your hands, or you start to have your heart race, or you start to have sweaty palms. Your body starts to get agitated because you're really busy worrying about the test tomorrow. You're really busy worrying about whether or not you're going to throw up. You're really busy worrying about that sleepover and whether or not it's going to go okay. You're really busy worrying about whether or not your friends are going to talk to you when you walk into school today. Or you're busy worrying that something might happen to your parents. Why did I give you those examples? There was a specific reason why. The top worries that kids 12 and under have are, number one, throwing up. Now, why would throwing up cause kids anxiety? Because as an adult, you've probably done it a bunch. And so you know, you throw up, it's over, it sucks, but that's it. There's no sense getting yourself worked up about it. But for kids, this is the number one thing that kids are afraid of, because it is an enormous loss of control when it happens. And it scares a lot of kids to have that happening to them because their brains aren't matured and they don't understand that it's just a moment. So they're not actually worried about the throwing up. They're having anxiety because they're thinking that it could happen at some point, and that makes their body feel weird. And then, of course, because their body feels weird, it makes them certain that it's coming. I mean, kids can actually, I have a son that actually made himself throw up because he got so worked up thinking that he might, that he caused himself to. This is a true story. Absolutely true story. So I have lived this. Being worried about you dying, major cause a worry for kids. They think about it. And if they think about it too much and they don't have a process and a plan around how to live with that very normal fear, it will turn into anxiety. The social pressures of being accepted, going to a sleepover and being worried about what's going to happen because you've never been to the house before. You don't really like dogs and they have one. Your friend's dad kind of scares you. What time are we going to go to bed? You see, there's a lot of uncertainty that we adults don't think about when it relates to sleepovers at new friends' houses that your kids are worrying about. And if they stay up here and they start worrying about all the uncertainty, it's going to cause their body to start to freak out. And then the whole thing starts to spiral. And next thing they don't want to go, or they get there and they're on edge and they need to come home. Again, we've had that situation in our family too, where the inability to tolerate the uncertainty of something that's supposed to be fun. When am I going to bed? What are we going to eat? Will I throw up while I'm there? Are they going to like me? What are their parents like? What TV are we going to watch? What time are you picking me up in the morning? All of those unanswered questions and the inability to tolerate the uncertainty of that triggers the anxiety in your kids. This is what's happening in their brains. The rejection of friends. You know, the group dynamics of kids, particularly in middle school, brutal. You couldn't pay me millions of dollars to go back to middle school at this point. But your kids are walking into it every day and they're worrying about whether or not they're being accepted, because every moment in school is a moment of uncertainty about whether or not you're going to get the answer right, whether or not people are going to laugh, whether or not you're wearing the right things. And so again, these are all the things that trigger your child to worry because they are racked with situations that cause uncertainty and that make our kids feel like they might lose control. Now, here's the major mistake that you and I make as parents. When our kids start to worry, or when our kids start to feel anxious, which is the agitation in their body, you know what you and I immediately do? We immediately try to fix it. We swoop right in and we start to either say, you're going to be okay, and we assure them, because we're trying to fix it, right? We're trying to make the worry go away. We say, oh, well, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and this is going to happen. And so we answer all their questions, and we start to put in all kinds of certainty for them. And that is the exact opposite thing that you and I should be doing. And it's not our fault. We've kind of been doing it forever, haven't we? I mean, we're always worried about our kids. And so we put up gates at the top of stairs so that they don't fall down. We've got child locks on caps so that they don't eat anything. We stopped buying the Tide Pods because we didn't want them to choke on it. Like, as parents, we're constantly anticipating things that could go wrong. We're putting in controls. And so it is natural for you and me to jump into fix-it mode. If you want to get your kid to move beyond the grip of anxiety, you have to understand how your behavior is contributing to the anxiety itself. See, one of the things that I believe about anxiety is the reason why we develop it and the reason why we keep it around is because it works. I mean, if your kid is anxious and they start freaking out, they don't have to go to school. So all of a sudden, that situation that they felt uncomfortable around, they've now gained control because the anxiety worked. You swooped in, you fixed it, you said, that's okay, you don't have to go. And the problem with doing this is that we might be managing the momentary breakdown, but we are not teaching our kids a critical skill in life, and that is the ability to tolerate not knowing, and the ability in the face of not knowing to assure yourself that no matter what, you'll figure it out. That is one of the most critical things that you could teach your kids. The self-reliance, the resiliency, the courage, and the confidence to know that even though I feel a little nervous, and even though I don't have all the answers, I can trust that I can figure it out. And so that's the kind of biggest picture, that I want you to switch your mind from thinking you got to fix this for your kids. And that's us buying into the anxiety. And realize that when anxiety is present, it means that your child, my child, can't cope with uncertainty. And now as a parent, it's my job to teach them how. Which brings me to what you're going to do. So it's a process to do this. And it's going to require you to change how you relate to their anxiety. Because if you're guilty of trying to fix it just like I am, you're going to have to change that. When your child starts feeling very anxious about something or getting worried about puking or worried about the test or worried, in my case, I'm dealing with this right now with our teenager who has a massive audition. Are we off? Are we over?
No, we're good.
Okay. I'm sorry. We're at our offices in a conference room we've reserved and people were gathering. My daughter has a massive audition this weekend. And she's starting to get nervous. And why shouldn't she? I mean, this is a really big deal. She should be excited, but she's about to do something huge. And so, of course, that's going to be natural. I can't buy into it. Because if I buy into it, I'm going to make it worse. Because I'm going to try to fix her nerves. I need to validate. This is advice number one. Always validate where your kid is. Always. I get that you're nervous. I get that you are feeling anxious about this. I get that your stomach hurts. I get that you are doing all kinds of X, Y, and Z, and you have a right to be. Hold on one second. Were we good?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure if there's another.
Sorry, we might be getting kicked out of our conference room in case we'll mobilize. So number one, validate. You have to validate where they're at, because part of the problem is our normal reaction is to go into fix-it mode, which completely jumps over them feeling like that you don't even get the feelings that they're feeling. The second thing that we do is we go, calm down, I'll help you fix this. And saying calm down, that's the worst thing that you could possibly do. Because when you say calm down to a child that's worried or anxious, what you're actually saying is, your worries don't matter to me. Your worries are silly. Your worries aren't valid. And so the last thing that you should ever say is calm down, because it sends the exact opposite message of what you want. So number one, validate. Totally get that you're nervous. I know that this is important to you. Tell you what, we're going to work together to make a plan. That is the number one word you want to say. Plan, plan, plan. Because when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to worries about the future, think about this for a minute. They're getting triggered by the fact that things are uncertain. They're getting triggered by the fact that, in my case this weekend, my daughter doesn't know how her audition's going to go. Your child's getting triggered by the fact that they don't know how the test is going to go. And so what you want to do is teach your child that in moments of uncertainty, the solution is not to panic, it's to plan. And that's where your skills come in. So here's what you're going to do. What I want you to do today is I want you to sit down with your son or daughter, and I want you to go through and identify all the things that trigger them to start worrying. All of the things that trigger them to feel anxious about something. Is it a friend situation? Is it a tryout situation like my daughter has this weekend? Is it a fear of throwing up at school? What is the thing that your child is worrying about? And if they're just worried about school, break it down further. You guide them through the process of taking this big thing, which is uncertainty and not knowing, and breaking it down into what exactly are you concerned about. The next thing that you're going to do, once you identify the triggers and you get them to describe the situation that they're worrying about, is you're going to come up with a plan. This is critical, okay? So let me give you some examples of it. A plan might be, we used to do this with our son, Oakley. A plan might be, okay, you're nervous about this sleepover. You're nervous because you've never been to the house before. You're nervous because they have 5 or 6 dogs and you don't know what that's going to be like. You're nervous because you don't know what time they're going to go to bed. You're nervous because you don't know what you're going to have for dinner. And you're nervous about that because you're nervous that if it triggers something in your throat, you might throw up. And you're nervous that you're not going to be able to sleep through the middle of the night. You're nervous that if you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to know what to do and you're going to get scared. Like, you will be shocked when you start to actually ask your kids questions. Okay, and what else? What else? Oh, yeah, okay, I totally get that. I get that that worries you. What else? Remember, you're going to ask them, validate. Ask them, validate. Now that you have all the things that they're worried about, come up with a plan. This is called A/B planning. when you come up with a A-B plan, you are, based on the research, 67% more likely to be successful with your plan. And one of the cool things about kids and anxiety is that when you have pre-planned what they're going to do in the event one of these things that they're worried about happens, since you've pre-planned what they're going to do, guess what you've removed? The uncertainty. It works like magic. Okay, great. So you're worried about dinner. What do you think we could do in order to remove the worry? Oh, I don't know. Well, do you think you could text your friend and ask them what they're having for dinner? Is there something you're concerned that they're serving? Because if you're concerned that they're serving something, we can pack you something to eat if you don't like it. Is that a plan that makes you feel better? Yep, it sure does. What are you going to do at 2 o'clock in the morning if you wake up and you want to come home? I'll tell you what, you're going to call me. Well, why does that worry you? Well, I'm worried you won't hear it. Okay, well, let me show you. What kind of plan can we come up with that will give you control over a situation that you're worried about? Oh, you're going to leave your phone in your bedroom. I'm turning on the ringer, so I trust that it's going to happen. Dad's phone is going to be on. These are all planning tools that remove uncertainty. And it's also super valuable because you are teaching your child the critical skill of learning how to tolerate something that you're uncertain about, to not get triggered, and instead to make a plan so that you can live with the uncertainty and you can create control in ways that is healthy instead of having a panic attack, which makes everybody else around you try to control what's happening. Do you see how this works? I mean, it's going to take planning on your part, and it's going to take you and parenting in a different way. And, look, I've been doing this with my own anxiety for more than 2 decades. I have 2 kids in particular that have pretty consistent issues related to anxiety. And just like Mindset Reset, it's not an event, it's a process. And the things that tripped up my son and made him anxious and worried when he was 9, we've now used what I'm telling you. I've validated it. We've gone through, we've broken things down. We've made a plan. We've even practiced the plan. He used to be terrified of getting on elevators, so we came up with a plan for what would happen if we were ever in one that broke down, and we practiced the plan. And we got on elevators together. And we even went and talked to somebody at the fire department about what happens when elevators. I mean, you can dismantle anxiety through the process of validating the worry, identifying what triggers the uncertainty, and making a plan and practicing it. And in fact, it's really the only way that works. And so the cool thing is that you're teaching your kids a skill that they can apply to anything. Oakley's anxiety has basically all but disappeared. And my daughter Kendall's anxiety only comes up when there are very acute situations of high stakes, like the one that we're facing right now. So in just a second, I'm going to take some questions from you, but I want to jump in and talk a little bit about how you tweak this for teens, because your teens are probably not going to sit down with you and go through their day and unpack everything that makes them anxious. If they do, that's fantastic, and you should use the exact same process that I just outlined for younger kids. But if your teens are full-on anxiety-ridden, most of it is triggered by social stuff with their friends. Most of it is triggered by the dynamic that you and I don't even understand that has become so much more consuming, because a couple things about teenagers that I want you to understand that are going on at the same time. Number one, you have to understand that teenagers are, what's a good word for a human being in progress? So it's sort of like a half-built house. You know what I'm saying? They're like a house that's been framed, okay? And we've got the Tyvek up, but we have not finished it yet. Your kids' brains are under development, so their ability to do complex processing or to make strategic, measured decisions, not developed yet. Boys in particular, their brain structure is very different than girls. They are more likely to take stupid risks. They're more likely not to think about the long-term consequences. Both boys and girls are having hormones rage through their systems, which also impact their ability to process things in a way that is rational at times. And then on top of it, throw in these two facts about human behavior. When you are a teenager, you go through a period in your biological development of needing to separate from your parents and to become your own independent person. It is hardwired into the DNA of every human being to go off on your own and define yourself as an individual at this stage in your life. And so if you've noticed an increase in conflict, if you've noticed that your kids push back on you, if you've noticed that your kids are asserting their independence and doing it in ways that are stupid or irrational or annoying, that is just part of the biological process of going from a framed house to figuring out how to furnish the thing and finish it off inside. They are mandated by their DNA to now start to push away from you and to become self-defined instead of defined by their family unit. At the same time, when you're a teenager, the number one important thing to you in terms of social structure is your friends. Your family is no longer the source of safety and stability for you. For most teenagers, they transfer that to their friends, and their friends become their primary group of influence, of importance, and of stability. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you may have an absolutely extraordinary relationship with your kids. I'd like to think that Chris and I do. That does not change the fact that their social standing with their friends right now are way more psychologically impactful than their relationship with you. And since you and I are not in the middle of their social interactions, and also since your teenagers have a phone 24/7, so they don't ever have a break from that social interaction unless you make the break happen, the rise of worry about how you fit in and whether or not that last text bothered somebody and whether or not, this person's mad at you or whether or not you did the right thing or whether or not this person's it is, I don't even know how to describe it because we didn't grow up this way. The pressure and the worry and the uncertainty and the desire and need to always feel like you're on and available and participating because of the DNA human behavior fact that your friend group is more important than anything right now. It defines who you are. That, in my opinion, has contributed dramatically to the rise in anxiety that we're seeing in teenagers because there's so much uncertainty. Every text you send, most kids are worried about how people are going to read it and whether or not people are going to think it's this or how many likes it you have. It's gotten crazy out of control. So what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that with teenagers in particular, it is essential that you do whatever you can to not get triggered by their anxiety, by their rage, by their irrational worries, by their pushing back. There's a difference between getting triggered and drawing boundaries between destructive, unsafe, and disrespectful behavior. You can still draw boundaries between their behavior that's destructive, disrespectful, and dangerous, and you should, and you must. But from the day-to-day pushing back, the not sharing, the anxiety, the blowing up about things, this is a time in your life where you got to have a lot of room for that. I think if you've been following... Oh, there we go. Okay. If you've been following me for a while, you know that procrastination is triggered by stress. So if you also notice that your teenagers are worried about college applications, or they're worried about exams, or they're worried about this audition this weekend, like Kendall is for, this big program that she's applying to at USC, and they're blowing off what they need to do, they're not idiots. They're triggered by stress. This is a form of anxiety that kids are feeling. It's why kids procrastinate, because they feel so much stress right now. So the last thing I want you to do is to be yelling at them. The last thing that I want you to do is swoop in and fix it. The last thing that I want you to do is to take it personally. If your kids are acting out, if they're showing forms of anxiety at home, some therapists I've read and have been told tell me that that's actually a decent sign because your kids are trying to hold it together outside of your house. And when they come home, they feel safe enough psychologically that they're letting the worst out. They're letting their vulnerabilities show. They're acting out in a way because they know that it's a safe place to do so. Now, it might be irritating as hell for you. It might trigger your own anxiety. It might drive you into fix-it mode. It might, in the case that it has been for Kendall and I, ignite combative behavior between the two of you because you're both seeking control in a situation. Kendall's seeking control over the audition process and the stress she feels around it, and I'm seeking control over Kendall, who in my opinion is starting to let her anxiety get the better, and it's a disaster. So with teens, you got to do what I am actively practicing every single day right now. And that is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take 5 before you snap or get angry or try to fix it. And I want you to quiet the conversation. And I want you to validate what you observe. You seem really upset. You seem anxious. I know you're worried about the audition. Do you need support? And I want you to ask them what's going on with you. Whether it's rage, whether it's anxiety, whether it's worry, what's going on with you? Because when you quiet things down, you're not stirring the pot. You're not invalidating them by yelling at them or telling them to calm down or fixing it. You're validating where they're at. And then what you're going to do is you're going to quiet and say, what's going on and what can I do? That's it. That's it. And they'll tell you if they need help. And if they tell you nothing and you can't help, keep inquiring. Are you sure? Because you don't seem like yourself. What could I do to really support you right now? Right now. Because what you're trying to do with teens is you need to get them to slow down the emotion so that they can get back to being rational. And from there, you can start the process of breaking things down and helping them come up with a plan. Don't ever create the plan for a teenager. Don't do it. You have to make them come up with the plan because they will not be invested in the plan you come up with. But they will be invested in one that they do. I think that's all I got, which is quite a bit. Are we sending this out today?
Yes.
So also,
In the
in the email that's going out, if you want the email, go to melrobbins.com/mindset reset. This is a tool for kids 12 and under. And inside this tool, I walk through the top 5 age-appropriate metaphors that you can use and teach to your kids to give them the superpower to recognize when they're starting to worry and to use some forms of metacognition, that's a fancy word for mind tricks, to help them redirect their thoughts. Today's training was really about how you as an adult start thinking about anxiety, why it's there, what it is, and how to change your approach from fixing everything and buying into it to backing up and learning. With anxiety, it's not about fixing the moment. It's about teaching your child a longer term skill that they can live with uncertainty, that they can tolerate it, and that they have the tools to be able to break it down, to make a plan, to practice the plan, and to survive whatever is coming their way. And that is the greatest gift that you could give to your kids. So if you want this, make sure you go to melrobbins.com/mindset reset, or yep, that's it. And that'll get mailed out today. We are not broadcasting tomorrow. This was a massively long and important training. We do not do Mindset Reset on the weekends because my team needs a break. I need to reset my mind, and I also need to fly to LA to do this audition with Kendall. Very excited for her. And you know what I'm going to be practicing all weekend? Just not buying into the worries and the anxiety and being in a place of service and validation and what do you need and how can I help, and just letting her ride the wave that she needs to ride as she has one of the coolest, most awesome moments of her life, regardless of how it goes. Do we have any questions? I'm sure we have a good jillion of them.
Yes, we do. I thought this was a good one. Fixing the problem versus helping create a plan. How does that work when you tell a child if they wake up scared, he'll come home and get you, as opposed to making a plan but also not fixing it?
Right. Okay, great. So you don't tell them, if you wake up scared, I'll come get you. what you do is you say, you co-create the plan. So what you want to do is you want to say, okay, it's 2:00 in the morning. What's the first thing that you could do if you're lying there in your friend's, trundle bed? What's the first thing that you could do in order to be able to fall back asleep? And so this is where anchor thoughts we covered in video 15, and there's lots of anchor thoughts discussed in this. You could have them rub their blanket 10 times and think about how good the pancakes are going to be. You could have them think about how excited they're going to be when you pick them up in the morning. You could help them come up with a mantra. And then if they're still worried or agitated, you get them to practice it. You get them to agree to it. You can also ask them, would you like me to call your friend's mom and walk through this plan? Would you like me to ask the mom if it's okay for you to wake her up if you wake up? You can kind of offer alternatives, and then ultimately, if they're still worried, you can say, and tell you what, if you try all those things, let's make a deal. If you, tap the blanket 10 times, if you close your eyes and think about the pancakes that she's going to make in the morning, if you close your eyes and think about happy and proud you're going to be that you spent the night and you stayed the whole time, if you know that the mom is there to help you and will come and rub your back if that happens, which is what you love when I do. And if all else, if that still doesn't feel comfortable and you try all that, you know that the mom can call me and I'll come get you. That's how I would handle it. So I wouldn't go DEFCON 10 to the solution where, I just wake up, okay, I'm going to call mom. And look, it's a process. The first couple times we tried this with our son, guess what? I got the phone call at 2:00 in the morning. But he had tried the other stuff. He did. And the next morning we talked about it. And the thing that's interesting about our kids is they're not letting you down. But when they don't succeed at something they want to succeed at, like making it all night at a sleepover, they've let themselves down. And so you and me constantly trying to fix it and rescue them doesn't work. And so what you do in that situation where they did call you is what I would do with Oak. I'd be like, okay, great. Let's try again. What do you think might have been another thing that we could have made as part of our plan? Well, I really didn't like the dinner that she served because, my stomach started to hurt. Great. So how about we do this? How about you don't do sleepovers until after you've had dinner at home? What if we put that in and we try it next time and we talk to them? And so it's going to be a process. He didn't just get on an elevator because we made a plan. We had to practice the plan. Then we had to see that there were other things that made him nervous, and practicing is part of it too. Excellent question.
We just got another one, and we've been getting this for a lot of parents, especially with teens,
Yeah.
about test anxiety and
Yes.
exam anxiety.
Yes.
So Wife Mother Nurse on Instagram asked, how can I help my daughter who's starting exams on Monday, and she has developed extreme anxiety around
Great.
testing? She's normally very confident. She's doing all the stuff to prepare, but she keeps getting so anxious when it comes to testing.
Great. So how do you help your kids, teenagers in particular, with test anxiety? So number one, nothing will substitute for preparation. So one of the things that I've realized with my own kids is that most of our kids do not have the executive functioning skills. And executive functioning, if you don't know the term, this was something I learned because two of my kids have learning learning disabilities, differences, whatever you want to call it. The executive functioning ability is like having a secretary in your brain that basically goes, I have a test on Monday. I guess I better make a plan. I guess I better buy some note cards. I guess I better do some time blocking. I guess I better take the stuff that I have. Like, it's the directing of yourself to go step by step by step through a process. And most kids don't have it. And it took me a long time to realize that my kids don't have it. And you have to teach that to your kids. So one of the things that you might want to stop and consider is her studying technique actually effective for her? Because a lot of kids who get worried spend a lot of time staring at books, but they're not actually studying. And so you can Google this topic. Jim Quick, Kwik, has incredible free content about the brain and memory and studying, and he's a great resource. But I always sit down with my kids before the exam season starts and I go, okay, let's make a map. Let's make a plan for the next 8 days leading up to the exam that you have. And let's break out and time block how you're going to spend your time and what you're going to spend on it so that you are studying in a way that makes you feel certain that you're doing the best that you can. So that's the way that I would coach you through preparation. When it comes to the mental game, there are two things that work, okay? Preparation is just a non-starter. If they haven't prepared, of course, they should be worried. But if they're preparing and they have a plan and mapping it out with Post-it notes and we always get a poster board for exam season and map the whole schedule out so they can see it. Seeing it visually reinforces that I've got a plan. You know, I don't need to worry about the test. I need to worry about the plan right now and doing the plan. It's super ridiculously powerful for kids. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to teach them two tools. You have to teach them the trick to say, I'm excited. When you have performance anxiety, if you allow yourself to worry, the worrying and the spinning in your head triggers your body to release cortisol, and cortisol then impairs your ability to remember what you studied. Harvard Medical School researchers have figured out that if you go into a situation like an exam that makes you nervous and worried and anxious, and you start going, I'm so excited to take this exam, I'm so excited because I prepared, I'm so excited to get this over with, I'm so excited, you perform better because you trick your body, and your body, because you're saying I'm excited, doesn't release cortisol, so you remember what you studied. It works like a charm. It's super simple. It's backed by research. Are you looking at me because we got to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Oh, somebody's going to kick us out of here in just a second. And we'll do a Q&A on Monday. Huge Q&A. So the second thing is, coach your kid, and I'm already doing with this Kendall. So every time she said, I'm nervous about my audition on Sunday, I'm like, no, you're not. You're excited. You know, you're about to do something cool. Keep saying you're excited. The second thing I'm coaching her to do is use a self-coaching tool where you ask yourself, why am I prepared? Why am I excited to take the test? And in Kendall's say, here's what she can say. I've been performing for 12 years. I've practiced my 3 songs. They picked me out of 2,000 kids to come and do a live audition. And by answering the question, why am I prepared? Why am I excited? By having to answer it, I've been practicing and singing on stages for 12 years. They actually picked me for my video audition. I've been practicing my songs. Heck, I'm even performing in a theater thing tonight. I can't wait for this to happen. By answering it, you hear yourself coming up with evidence for why. So I was born in Kansas City, Missouri. My parents met in college at Bethany College in Lindsborg, Kansas. And they were married very young. My mom was 19 and dropped out of college to have me. And my dad was 23. And my mom worked nights at the IRS while my dad they put him through medical school. And I come from a very, very long line of hardworking and very humble and big-hearted people. So my mom grew up on a massive cattle farm in upstate New York. And all my aunts and uncles have names like Duke and Warney, and they raise hogs, and they, are machinists. And my dad's family are immigrants from Austria, and they had, after being in the Navy, my grandfather married my grandmother, who grew up in a coal mining town in Ohio, and she answered an ad to be a maid in some rich person's house in New Jersey. And when my grandfather was in the Navy, he came to this country at the age of 15 from Austria. They met and they got married when they were very young, and they had a tiny little bakery that they ran. And so it is in my DNA to work hard. It is in my DNA to be a humble and servant kind of person because of how I was raised. And I had an amazing childhood. I grew up in a teeny little town in western Michigan, North Muskegon, Michigan. There's 3,000 people there, lakes all around. My parents, they bought their first home there. I was, I think, in 4th grade when we moved there, summer of 1976. I remember it very clearly because my mother bought me a one-piece bathing suit from Myers. It's called Myers Thrifty Acres, for those of you that aren't as old as me. And I had all the like fireworks and stuff over it. And so I remember that summer, 1976 is when we moved to North Muskegon, Michigan. And I have one brother who is about your height, maybe a little taller, 6'5", 3 years younger than me. And we were this small little family clinging to each other as my dad built his medical practice. And, one of the defining moments of my life, in a positive way, is that we would always wait until my dad got home to have dinner as a family. And I remember just being starving at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. My dad would be on call and we just waited. And so those sort of intentional family moments are a really important part of who I am, of kind of my day-to-day life. But one of the biggest, most defining moments of my life is this incident that happened in the 4th grade. And I'm going to explain it right now, even though it might be a bit of a triggering story for some people who are listening, because I think it's going to help you understand that all the dots on the map of your life are truly interconnected. And when I explain what happened to me, it'll allow me to open up a conversation, Joel, about trauma, your nervous system, about the way that your brain works, how you can heal it, and how coping mechanisms that you created when you were a child are literally still in place right now. And so this is what happened. We were on a ski vacation with all these other families, first time ever skiing in northern Michigan. And I was in a bunk room with a bunch of other kids. And I woke up and there was a kid on top of me. And he was having, his way with me. I was in the 4th grade. And, in the span of things that could happen to you when it comes to this kind of sexual abuse or molestation or whatever, this is pretty mild. I mean, I'm just gonna, I've like you, I have coached and been in the front of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. And so in the span of what could happen to you, this was mild. It was a one-time incident. I wouldn't even classify it as scary. It was more confusing. But it set me on a course, Joel and Dan, that I didn't understand was happening. Literally, I've just unpacked this thing over the last 5 years. Very, very defining moment, because what happened is I was sound asleep when it happened and the kid was on top of me. And I remember waking up and I knew instinctively this was wrong. This shouldn't be happening. But I'm in the 4th grade. I don't know what to do. So I literally disassociate. I leave my body. And I don't even remember how it ended. But I woke up the next morning and I had this sensation that something was wrong, that someone was mad at me, that I had done something wrong. And we're going to talk a lot today about human design and how just magnificent our minds, body, and spirits are. Just unbelievable, intelligent design. One of the incredible flaws, though, to the human design is the fact that every single child does not have the life experience or the wiring yet to process something bad that happens. And so most of us, when something bad happens to us when we're a kid, we don't go, oh my gosh, if this kid's doing this to me, who's doing what to him? I mean, or these adults are crazy, or this shouldn't be happening. Every single child has the same response, which is, there must be something wrong with me. We take these things that are confusing or scary or traumatic or abusive or sad or upsetting, and we aim it right back at ourselves. And that's what I did. I woke up the next morning and literally wired into my nervous system, and I now understand trauma at a profound level. In the course of healing it, I always seek to understand something as I'm trying to figure something out. My nervous system had recorded that moment, and so I woke up, Joel and Dan, with this sense something bad has happened, something's wrong. And I'm going to tell you something. I didn't connect the dots to that moment waking up when I was 8 years old. All the way forward, another 40 some years until recently. I now realize that for 4 decades, you guys, I would wake up and the first sensation I would feel was something's wrong. because the act of waking up was a trigger that made my whole nervous system and brain remember, I don't even know this is going on. And whether it was that, okay, something's wrong. My husband Chris got up earlier. He must be mad at me because I'm not up yet. Or I didn't respond to that email. Like, it was this lived experience. And the more that I talk about this, the more I have people write to me, hundreds a day actually, saying, that's exactly how I wake up. And they can start to trace it back to the fact that they had a mom that was critical, or they had somebody in the household that was mentally ill, or they were living with poverty, or they were living in an abusive household. And so the lived experience as a child is something could go wrong today, because it often did. And so if you're waking up and your first experience waking up is anything but positive, what you're going to learn today is life-changing. It's free. It's based in science. We're going to teach you how to erase that recording in your body and mind, and how to reset something else. Because it's no fun to wake up and feel like you've done something wrong. And then your mind starts spinning and looking for reasons, and you're always going to find it. So what happened, though, is that morning I woke up, I felt that like tension that something was wrong. I'm in my little 8-year-old brain. I get downstairs and my mom is standing there, you guys, and she's cooking breakfast, and there's moms everywhere and kids, kind of running around as everyone's getting ready to go skiing. And my mom turns and she has a spatula in her hand. And she says, "Hi, honey, how'd you sleep?" And I remember it like it was yesterday, you guys. I paused and I thought about telling her. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw the kid. Now, I knew what my mom would do. She's a farm gal. She would have taken that spatula and smacked that kid into next week. Like, there was no doubt in my mind what my mother was going to do. But I didn't know how this kid was going to respond. And in that split second, even though I wanted to tell her, I lied. And I said, fine, because I didn't want to create a ruckus. I said, fine, I lied to keep the peace. And I am certain that is exactly the moment that I went from being able to tell the truth with pure motive, authenticity, to being somebody that was deeply insecure about people's reactions. And so I started living my life assessing what was going on and then adapting to keep things cool.
I think, having been having a lot of childhood trauma, I'll tell you, I also think the high five to the heart does help you with trauma responses, because, when you're in addressing trauma, well, whether it's EMDR or it's some of these new psychedelic guided therapies, both of which I've done, both of which have been profoundly effective, because, if you didn't talk yourself into the trauma, you're not going to talk yourself out of it.
Correct.
You need to have a corresponding physical disruption to what the trauma did to your nervous system. And so this is actually using the vagus nerve in this way will help you smooth out that trauma response alongside some of these other modalities that really, really help. And, when you talk about the worries, this is the next thing that you're going to do. So this is how you use the 5-second rule. Pediatricians around the world are using the 5-second rule in this manner. And I have had an entire wing of an inpatient unit in a Philadelphia psych ward write to me. And they ended up coming to the talk show when I was doing a daytime talk show, and said that of all the tools that they give people who have had an inpatient commitment, that are struggling with severe depression, suicidal ideation, the 5-second rule is the most effective tool that they have to give people, because it's simple, you can remember it, and it works to interrupt those thoughts that just drag you down and make you feel hopeless and isolated. And so the same is true with worry. So some of your anxiety begins with your nervous system, but a lot of anxiety begins because your default thinking pattern is simply to think, and worry. And so the first thing that you're going to do is you need to just start to notice when your thoughts are drifting to a place that makes you feel on edge. And the first step is to interrupt them. So, if you're worrying about a presentation that's coming up, you're worrying about something that's going to happen, you're worrying about, like my daughter right now is worried about whether or not she's going to find an apartment in South Boston 4 months from now. Worried about it, 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 worried. There aren't any. She's checking every day, worried about it, worried about it, worried about it. And that's not serving her. It's making her feel anxious. It's making it's hard to get out of that loop. And so the first thing is to notice it. And then you can use the 5-second rule. You count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because that pattern of worrying and the what if, where you're tracking about somebody's health, or you're tracking about the job interview, or you're just looping, like you're spinning the same load of laundry in your head over and over and over again. When you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you stop the worry. And by the time you get to 1, you have a moment of control. And the only thing I want you to say, you can pick one of two things. They both work. You can either say, I'm not thinking about that. That's it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. Or you can say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What if it all works out?
I love what if questions like that.
Yeah. What if it all works out? What if it all works out? That's it. And I only want you to practice for a week, getting in the habit of actually catching it and interrupting it. You can't replace it yet because you don't have enough distance from it. And you're not going to believe the positive thought. I actually write in the High Five Habit about the fact that most mantras don't work because we pick mantras we don't believe.
Right.
If you struggle with, your appearance, or you have body dysmorphia, standing in front of a mirror and saying, I love myself, it's not going to work because you actually don't. You have to pick something. Your brain will reject it, actually. Yeah. And so you have to pick something that's actually more meaningful or a little more lame. I deserve to feel healthy. Even if you don't like how you look, you can get behind that.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
I deserve to treat myself with kindness. I'm doing the best I can. Like those sorts of things that are believable.
They land. Yeah.
That starts to change things. But so you first start 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, use the 5-second rule, interrupt the habit loop that is encoded in your subconscious, catch it, and then just say, what if it all works out? Or I'm not thinking about that. And then when you start to get better at interrupting it, because when you interrupt it, guess what? If it's not spinning, it's not going to make your body feel more anxious.
Yep.
And then what you do is, this is the next step, is after about a week of doing that, now go through your day and write down all the things that trigger you. And this
as
works
they happen, or kind of at the end of the day? What's the better way to do that?
Kind of like as they're happening, or you can think about tomorrow. What are the things that you're worried about that are going to trigger you? What are the situations that might bring up anxiety? So you're going to do what they call A/B planning. And they find that when people make an A/B plan, when A happens, then B. So when I walk into work and I have to give this presentation, then B, and you plan your response, you're like 60 to 70% more likely to be successful when you do this type of A/B planning. And you can do this with your thoughts, because once your mind starts to scramble with worry, or you start to feel slightly on edge, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Because you have a lifetime of hijacking yourself. So you make a little plan. And like if you have kids, for example, and you've got a kid that's really nervous to go back to school because they haven't really been in school, depending upon where you're listening from, and they're getting anxious and they're worried about throwing up and they're scared to go in, make all the little things about the day that make them nervous, and then go through and come up with a list of things they could do when that happens. And that will equip them with a go-to. And now this is where we then go to the third step, which is inserting this brilliant piece of research from Harvard Medical School. And the piece of research is grounded in science. And the science is this: what we call anxiety, an on-edge nervous system, a heart that's racing, stomachs that's in knots, a throat that's tight, hands that are clammy. We all call that anxiety or nerves. It is the exact same physical response as excitement.
Yeah.
There's actually no difference physiologically between a state of being excited about your favorite band coming out onto stage and you being nervous about giving a presentation. You feel the exact same thing. The only thing that's different in that situation between excitement and nerves is that your brain believes that the concert is exciting and believes that the presentation is nerve-wracking. And so at Harvard Medical School, they wondered, could you trick a brain in a situation where it's nerve-wracking to actually reframe it as if it were exciting, even though you don't think it's exciting to give a presentation? And if we could trick the brain to believe that a nerve-wracking situation is just exciting, would it impact your performance? And the answer is yeah, you can trick a brain to think a nerve-wracking situation is exciting. And yes, it has a profound impact on your performance. And it goes back to the original piece of research that I shared, which is when your nervous system goes on edge and then your thoughts start to spiral, your prefrontal cortex can't work. So no matter how hard you prepared for that presentation or that test or that exam or that track meet, your nerves kill your performance because you can't focus.
Yeah.
And so if you now make your list of the things that make you nervous, I've got a presentation tomorrow. I'm nervous my neck is going to be red. I'm nervous I'm going to screw up. I'm nervous people are going to think it's bad. Those are all the things and thoughts that make you start to spiral. So you're going to go make your little plan, and then you're going to write down on the other side of the piece of paper, why are you excited to do this? Well, I'm excited because I put a lot of work in. I'm excited because I want to be more visible at work. I'm excited because I want to get it over with. And then the way that you put this all together is when you start to feel yourself go on edge, or you start to feel your thoughts spin. You use the 5-second rule to interrupt the worry and anxiety response, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you simply say, as dumb as it sounds, I'm so excited to give this presentation. I'm so excited to get it over with. I'm so excited because I'm prepared. And even though you're going to have butterflies, and even though your heart's going to be racing, it's not going to escalate because you have literally stopped down your brain from spiraling in worry and escalating the anxiety response in your nervous system.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
So I'm going to teach you something incredible. Do you experience anxiety too?
I do. I think I do hold my breath. Like I'll forget to breathe. I clench my jaw.
I do that too.
My body gets really tight. I notice that. I'm like, I'm like, oh, like what the is going on? Why am I doing that? But I'll just even be typing, like clench the up. My body is so tense.
And do you remember like when you first started experiencing that?
Probably. I remember like maybe like high school. I can remember just like tightening at like my body getting really tense. Just like drama with my parents, stuff, things that were uncomfortable for me that I didn't want to talk about, that I felt triggered by.
Yeah. Got it. Well, I asked that because it's important to kind of understand triggers to get control of it. I'm going to teach you a science-backed technique that I call high-fiving your heart. It's a lifesaver. And it also helps with trauma. So the way that I think about anxiety is an alarm system in your body. And it has a really important purpose. So let's say that we're driving down the car. See, the joints are already kicking in. We're driving down the highway. And we're just talking up a storm. We're playing Eminem. It's fucking awesome. Like we're just,
leave me alone.
So we are literally driving down the highway. It's an incredible time. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this freaking semi truck like pulls into our lane. What you feel in that moment as you swerve out of the way and your armpits sweat and your throat tense and your body shoulders go up and your ankles have the hot flash go, that's anxiety. It's an alarm system that's saying, wake up, bitch. Like, that's what it's saying. Like, that's what it is. But what happens in your body when the semi-truck pulls away and you realize you're safe? What happens?
It all releases.
Correct. Because anxiety in that moment makes sense intellectually. What becomes a problem in life is when you feel that alarm response in your body and you're just making a cup of coffee in your kitchen. And there's also a connection between worrying, which sounds an alarm in your mind, because if you allow your mind to dwell too long in the what if this and what if that and what if the other thing and what your body starts to notice that your mind is alarmed. So the body then starts to signal the alarm too. And so you got to really watch your thoughts. And we can talk about this for the next time I come back. I'll come and train you in like the hand to fist combat with your own mind. But for now, what I want to teach you is how to master your nervous system, because this is cool. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You're going to take your hands and you're going to put them on your heart. This is called high, like right, I put them right in the center. I don't put it on like my boob or anything. I like put it right on the center and press in the center. And in the center of your chest, what you're going to feel is you're going to feel the vagus nerve. This is a treasure in your body. Okay, this is like a Range Rover in your system, man. You just won the lottery. It goes from your ass through every major organ, through your vocal cords, and up to the top of your head. This is your on-off switch between fight or flight and being calm and cool.
I already feel better.
Right? So when you put your hands here, we're going to take a deep breath. Now I want you to repeat these 3 sentences after me. I'm okay.
I'm okay.
I'm safe.
I'm safe.
I'm safe.
I'm loved.
I'm loved.
What do you feel?
Peace. I feel a little at peace.
I feel a lot more at peace because even talking about my anxiety gives me anxiety. So I started to feel anxious when I was talking to you about it. And that literally, the moment I put both my hands here, I felt like, okay, I feel like something's happening. And actually, our friend Bruna, she had told me had mentioned that whenever she starts to feel anxious, she has to do this, but she didn't have these things to say. But it feels, wow, really, you guys, if you're listening, do this shit right now.
Yeah, you want to press here because here's the thing. And there are mornings when, it was going down and I would wake up and say this 53 times. And it's a way to flip the switch between what's called your sympathetic, which is your fight or flight nervous system, and your parasympathetic, which is your grounded, I call it your cool, calm nervous system. This is your resting nervous system. This is where your power is when you're in your body, when you're grounded. And so if you can do it any time of day, teach it to your kids. It's free. It uses science. Repeat that. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm loved. The I'm safe might make you cry a little bit because part of the trigger for so many of us that have childhood trauma is this sort of hardwiring in your nervous system that you're not safe when things are uncertain because many of us weren't. And so your body remembers this. And so when you have this free tool, and I recommend 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up. Get out of that bed because nothing good is going to happen with you laying there, feeling anxious, thinking, overthinking, worrying, staring at the ceiling or your phone. Once you're up, you can sit on the edge of the bed or you can stand up, high-five your heart until you feel yourself coming back into your body. Then you're going to walk into the bathroom, and as you're I want you to, right after you brush your teeth, because I want you to use science to remember to do this, we're going to stack the habit of brushing your teeth, because hopefully you're fucking brushing your mouth and getting that nasty-ass breath out so you're not, spreading that shit everywhere. Now, let's high-five you to get that nasty-ass shit out of your mind, body, and spirit. This could be generational shit that's going to end with you. I was talking with, I don't know if you guys know Jason Wilson, Mr. Jason Wilson. He's incredible. He's in Detroit. I'm a Michigan gal, so anybody from Michigan is family to me. But he runs a martial arts, what are they called, a dojo in Detroit. And his whole mission is about emotional fitness for boys and men. And he and I are great friends, and we were talking the other day. His books are Cry Like a Man and Battle Cry. And he literally said, and he's a real soft-spoken guy, and he's got a big white beard, and beautiful bald head. He said, Mel, you know me. I'm here. I'm helping all these boys be emotionally fit, Mel. I went to raise my hand to my mirror in my dojo. You know, Mel, I realized it was so hard because my father never did that for me. My father wasn't in my life. And he started to talk about how it really struck him deep, even as self-aware, as spiritual, as impactful as his work is. It hadn't occurred to him that he's always focused on what's next. He's never stopping to see himself, to celebrate himself every step of the way because nobody did it for him. And so, I want you to do that for yourself. Look at the human being in the mirror. Create a trust and partnership with yourself. That's the one person you're going to go through life with.
That's your bestie.
Oh my God, you're going to make me cry over here. I'm like, I wasn't told enough as a child either.
None of us were, because none of our parents were.
Right.
They were only doing, I'm not justifying anything that they did when I seek to understand what happened and kind of understanding that
most of our parents didn't get any of their emotional needs met either. That's why they didn't know how to meet ours. That does not excuse the fact that they didn't give you what you needed as a kid. But it certainly helps me. It helps explain it so that I can change how I treat myself, how I can take ownership of the next 50 years of my life. I can break free of the habits and the patterns that are not even mine. They're generational patterns. And it's going to stop with me.
And your children. I mean, how do your children take on, all of your tools? I mean, because, kids were like so resistant of our parents. I know even my mom, my mom created this amazing tool, right? And she wanted me to use it. And I was like, I'm good with my hands, Mom. I'm cool. And fast forward 20 years later, no one's using their hands except Mel Robbins when she forgets
I know. Today I forgot to pack it. I'm sorry.
But I'm curious to know like how your kids, react to this amazing, this amazing education, advice, lifestyle, just
a gigantic eye roll at sometimes, but then they use it when they need it. I know they're listening because they call me and they call their dad when the shit is hitting the fan. And they are in this book. So there's in chapter 4, as I was writing this book, I got a text from one of my daughters that said, "Why do I always feel like the ugliest girl at the bar?" Now, something that breaks everybody's heart, but it is the perfect example of the fact that it doesn't matter what I say to her. I could tell her, what do you mean? You're not, look at that over there. She's hideous. You're not the ugliest. You're just the second ugliest.
Take a picture of the bar right now.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not, I'm going to rate these people. Yeah, seriously. Like, you could say all that. It wouldn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. I could pump her up like I have. You're loyal. You're amazing. You're smart. You're hardworking. You're beautiful. You're this, you're that, you're the other thing. Can't even hear it because she doesn't believe it. That's why the high five habit is so important, because it starts with you. Your relationship with yourself is everything. You can think you're the ugliest person at the bar and then high five yourself, and that beat down silences because you still see a human being that you're going to encourage and support. Mm-hmm. And when you come from that place and you start an act of the defiance, it's like an act of defiance. So yeah, f*** off. Watch me. I'm not going to listen to this shit anymore from my own head. Like, so you have to do the work yourself, because nobody can change your self-doubt and your negative mindset and your self-rejection but you. No one else can do this for you.
Right. I think it's difficult to like deal with self-doubt and self-rejection without giving yourself the grace. We forget that. Like, we can criticize ourselves all day and night. Nobody's perfect. But if you don't love on yourself equally as much, that's never going to come through. Just like if I'm talking to you all day, like, you're not this book, it's all right. I read it. It's okay. It's a 5 out of 10, but it's if I tell you, oh, it's good, like if I'm always telling you, talking to you, and then I tell you something good, you may not believe that.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because my daughters busted me as I was writing this book. They allowed me to share a bunch of like personal stories of stuff they were struggling with, and something from our son. Not great parenting moments, by the way. These are not the things that I'm proud to write about. But and it's interesting because my daughter Kendall, the one that's out here in California studying, said, "Well, you know why we trash ourselves?" And I'm like, "No." She's like, "Well, because you trash yourself all the time." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Every time we take a picture, and we show it to you, you're like, do I really look like that? And Mom, we think you're beautiful. So if you don't believe it, why would we think we're beautiful? If we think you are and you don't believe it." And I'm like, there's 3 more years of therapy.
Right. Must write another book.
Well, that is my brand of self-help. Either fall in a hole or dig one myself. And then I need a ladder to climb out.
That's literally what all this business is. Everything that we do, we're like, okay, what do we need to work on? Let's make it a challenge. What do we need to work on? Let's go on. We need healing. Let's plan a retreat.
Don't have sex. You don't want to. We should stop having sex. Tell everybody.
Everyone's going to stop having sex with us. Like, I feel that. I really feel that.
What did you two get from this conversation?
A lot.
Like, what's the most important thing you think you got?
I do need to be better at looking at the person in the mirror, being kinder to that person, acknowledging why maybe I'm not kind, or acknowledging the things that are good. I'm getting emotional. I'm such a Cancer.
What are you getting emotional about?
I don't know. I think that I do need to work on being nicer to myself. It's like internally.
Why does that scare you?
I don't know. I don't even know why I'm crying.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because this shit hits deep. Like, the interesting thing about this book is that it's the stupidest thing on its face.
I know. I will be honest. I opened the book. I was like, high five, Habit. High five yourself. What?
Total. Everybody has that reaction because it's so pervasive to beat the shit out of yourself. And for a lot of us, being tough is a survival mechanism. Because we think if we get vulnerable or cry or, feel the pain, that's going to be even worse. Like, I think it's hard to actually think about how much I've fucked up in my life. That's why it was hard to forgive myself. I wouldn't actually go there because it was too painful to think about for just how long I hated myself and I was in survival mode because I didn't know any better. I didn't know how my childhood trauma was impacting me. And it's painful when you slow down and you see the person in the mirror that's hurting, that needs you.
It's true.
But it's also beautiful.
Thank you. I was thinking this week, I've been needing my dad a lot this week because he's been helping me with my daughter. But all he does is talk to you guys. He is the number one talking dad of the fucking universe. I'm like, can you shut the up? I literally told him that. That's how we talk to each other. It's not healthy. He literally had a key to my house because he did something. He came in at 1:00 in the morning. Me and my daughter are asleep. He's like, where's my backpack? First of all, I'm alarmed. I'm just an intruder. He's like, it's me. I'm like, it's up here. He's literally talking to me as he's getting it. You parked in the street. Where are the keys? What the fuck would you park like that? I was just like, I couldn't even respond. But it dawned on me this week. I'm like, I'm so used to being talked to this way. I'm so used to being criticized.
So's he.
And it's true. That's how we talk to each other. It's how my family talks to each other. And it's not healthy. But it's normal. And it's almost like if we get sensitive, it's weird. Like, don't, you know what I mean? And it's probably my inner voice is that criticism. And that's a crazy, weird realization.
Yeah, your dad is your inner voice. Like, that voice, the way that he talks is the way you talk to yourself. And so it's not even yours. And here's the enormous opportunity. You're strong enough to withstand the eye rolls and the, oh, for God's sakes, from your family, to be the one that actually shifts the way that everybody shows up for each other. It would be transformational for you to go, hey, I am tired of this. Life is hard enough. I actually need some love from you, Dad. And I love you. I need you. But I can't have you come over if you're going to talk me. I need something else from you.
It's so crazy to watch your parents, your dynamic with him, because they love each other so
I'm sure they
much.
do.
He shows up for her. Like, I mean, I know that you guys have your, but like, he's a great grandfather. Like, he shows up, but he does. He talks the whole time. But he's like has this happy demeanor as he does it. So it's like, it's weird. And then they're talking. I'm listening to them talk. The other day, yesterday, I was like, you guys only get one daughter and one grandfather. I'm like, you guys need to stop talking to each other.
Yeah, why not?
You guys are talking. He's literally.
What do you want it to be
he's
like?
Help doing everything that he's.
Can you give us an example? What does he say?
He was just like, oh God, like, I wish my daughter would just get her shit together. Like, she's just, everything's everywhere, and like, what was he saying? He was just saying like, yeah, he did say, he even acknowledged that he's like, and the way you parked in front of the house, it was fucking crazy. And she was like, well, Dad, you were at the fucking house at 1 a.m, and Luna's there too, and they're both, Luna's her daughter, so she's hearing them talk. And it's so normal for them. It's not normal for me because that's not how me and my family communicate. Whatever, we have our own communication, but that's a whole other episode. But it's more passive aggressive.
I know that one.
So it's like secret nice. They're just like straight to the point. And I was like, this is hilarious. It was funny, but it's not funny. But it was funny because I was like, they love each other so much. They're literally doing things for one another as they're talking to each other.
Well, it's sort of like if you're raised in a household that speaks English, you learn English.
True.
It's where whatever the vibe, the language, the content, the tone, whether it's passive aggressive, whether it's a silent treatment, whether it's talk, and maybe another way that you could do this instead of like drawing a boundary is make a commitment to yourself. And the game that you're going to play when you send yourself into the game of life with a high five is today, no matter what my father says, I'm not talking to him.
Oh, wow.
Like, don't
Literally, don't try to break.
Maybe say thank you.
Yeah. Dad, thank you. I know you're just worried about me. I love you too. And watch the tone.
Which is also super hard for me to do that.
Like to be nice to him.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
sometimes it's hard for me to like give words of affirmation because that's not what I'm used to hearing. Like I can think about nice things and I'm kind. I'm kind. I'll do things for you.
Well, do you know that you have the right to sit your father down and say, I do not want my daughter to talk like this. And starting today, I need your help changing the way we treat each other, Dad. I love you. I do not want to go to the grave talking to each other like this. You show up physically, but emotionally, verbally, it's brutal. Can we work on this together for her?
I'm so glad this is recorded.
Yeah, make her listen to this shit.
Hold on, I have something to say, Dad.
This is from me to you, from Mel.
Because trust me, he probably doesn't hear it. He doesn't know how much it hurts you.
I don't know.
Because you yell back, right?
It's how they communicate. I think it's so simply put, but I feel like that's all it really would. I feel like your dad would be receptive to that. I think he would. He's going to talk shit a little bit because it's just in his nature to talk shit.
True.
And it takes a second to do the unlearning, and maybe he needs to high five himself too.
Well, that comes from like hardness and pain.
Yeah.
Like I can't only imagine how he was talked to in his life, that he does it so casually with you. And you've only ever known this, which is why you're accepting it. But you're no longer a child in his house. You're a grown-ass woman in her own house.
Right. And you're
who
in my
is
house
building
too.
a f***ing empire. And you get to say how somebody talks to you now. You get to say what relationship you would like to build with your dad now. You get to say where this habit, it's just a pattern, ends in terms of your family. And you get to say what is acceptable around your daughter.
That's powerful.
Not easy. Not easy at all. Not easy at all. But you can do it. And high-fiving yourself and affirming that you're worth it is literally going to help you do it.
True.
And one more thing about our kids. We can bolster our kids all you want. You want to know, there's so much too in this book about parenting, because I've got a ton of stories about parenting mistakes I've made, ways I've like plummeted my kids' esteem, things that are heartbreaking, like chapter, as I was writing this book, chapter 4, I get a text from one of our daughters. How do I not feel like the ugliest girl at the bar every time I go out? You want to know something as a mom? I can't change that. Only she can. If I stand in front of the mirror and say, but you're beautiful, but you're loyal, but you're an amazing human being, but you're funny, but you're this, and you will meet somebody, you just haven't met the right, but she can't even hear it because it's not what she says to herself. Mm-hmm. So the reason why you have to make this a habit to stand before yourself, the human being, and see the human being in that body and recognize that you're sad, or recognize that you're beating yourself up, or recognize that you're not where you need to be. And then raise your hand and say, I hear it. And you know what? I still love you. I still support you. I'm still here for you. Only she can change that for herself.
Yeah.
I can provide tools. I can provide a nutritionist.
Totally.
I can provide a psychologist, but your children and you, they got to do the work themselves. And so this
Mel,
is a tool that will help them do it.
There's something that happens between, young children, because I have a 5-year-old who can't look in the mirror, or 6-year-old who can't see herself, right? Because she's not tall enough to look in all the mirrors. And so she's not looking at herself constantly. And she And I would say all of our kids when they were younger just love themselves so much, right? They think they're beautiful and strong and
best singers, best dancers.
Yeah, like my hair is amazing, like I am beautiful. And there's something that happens with comparisons when they begin to, although she's obsessed with her older sister, but there's this thing that they have this confidence. And somehow if we can think about that as adults, that, you know, we have, at one point we were madly in love with ourselves, because that's what young children do. They're madly in love with themselves, and then you lose it. So you had it, and then something happened for you to begin to lose it. So you can be inspired by the children around us, because that person hasn't changed. That person has just been told to not love themselves like that child has loved them. So it's going back to that original, like, I mean, there's so much beauty in that toddler, that 5-year-old who walks down in their tutu, and everyone's looking at them and they're like, look at me, you know, and we stop saying that. We say, don't look at me.
Yeah.
And there's a shift.
You're exactly right. Well, you want to know the good news? The good news is all that is wired into your DNA.
Yes.
Life made you doubt it. And so this is a way to get back to who you really are. And that doesn't mean you're arrogant. It doesn't mean that you're selfish. It means that of every human being on the planet, you realize you're the one person you go through life with, and that your relationship with yourself is the foundation of every relationship that you have. Because if you don't love yourself, you will never believe that somebody else truly loves you, and you'll continue to sabotage that relationship. If you are insecure with the person you see in the mirror, you will behave in insecure ways out in the world.
So, Mel, we get a lot of teachers and parents listening to this podcast. And I was particularly taken by the line that you said about that many of us haven't been taught the skill of being kind to ourselves, which is what the book is around. So what advice would you give to those of us that are parents, or those of us that are teachers, about how we can start to educate children around kindness?
Well, the most powerful way to teach anybody anything is to not tell them, but to show them. It starts with you. If you stand in front of the mirror and criticize yourself, your kids are hearing you. If you say, let me get in the back of the photo because you don't like your body, your kids are hearing you. If you screw up and you're like, bloody hell, why do I always suck? Your kids are hearing you. Their brains are like little sponges absorbing your patterns of behavior. And if your patterns of behavior include being hard on yourself, criticizing yourself, hating your body, your kids hear it. And so it starts with you. That's number one. The second thing that I would say is that there's a really interesting study that we write about in chapter 2 that was mind-blowing to me, that every educator and parent needs to know. Now, you guys talk about the growth mindset all the time, right? You know the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. We all know that. So researchers wondered, what is the best way to motivate somebody to tap into that sense of resilience when you're facing a challenging moment, right? And so they did this study where they divided kids into 3 groups, and they tested 3 different forms of encouragement. One of them was based in the fixed mindset stuff. So they would walk up to students and verbally tell them, you're really smart, you know, praising a fixed trait about them, which, you know, helps a little bit to feel encouraged, but doesn't really go the distance. The second group got the growth mindset praise, which is, of course, as we all know, praising something that you have control of, which is your effort. Oh, you're really perseverant. Oh, you're such a hard worker. I really admire that. The third group, the researchers didn't say a thing. They just gave the kids a high five. That's it. Just a simple, ordinary high five. No verbal praise at all. Those kids that got a high five during a challenging task, those kids outworked both of those groups, felt better about themselves, worked longer, pushed through more challenges. The researchers were so blown away that they changed the title of the study when it was published in Frontiers of Psychology, the research magazine, to the motivational power of a high five. And the question is, why? Why is it more motivating than verbal praise? Well, the reason why a high five is so motivating is because it fulfills a human being's most foundational emotional needs. When you high five somebody, whether it's yourself or your kid, when they're going through a challenging moment, first of all, you hear them. because the high five says, I get it. This sucks. Like when my husband started doing this, he still felt like a failure. The high five doesn't say, you're awesome. The high five says, I get it. There have been some things that have really gone wrong. And guess what? I'm still here for you. I still believe in you. That's what it's doing. So when you high five a kid going through a challenge, you're acknowledging that this is hard, but you're also transferring the energy of your belief back to them. It's a shared celebration in your ability to face this moment. And I'm here to tell you, you can build that partnership with yourself. Like right now at the beginning of a school year, what goes viral? All of those moments where teachers create individual handshakes and high fives with kids going into the classroom. Why do we all love that? Well, because innately we know that each one of those kids feels seen and feels important. They don't feel ignored. They don't feel like they just, there's no reason for them to be there. They feel like they matter. That is the most important thing for your kids and for you to feel that they matter. And so I think that A, you should certainly be adopting the high five, and B, you should be modeling this.
Before we move to our quick fire questions where we always finish the interview, Mel, I do want to talk really quickly about a story in your book that really stood out to me, which is when you talk about your son having blue hair when starting school and you were desperate for him not to stand out. And this is a really interesting one because the amount of teachers and parents that listen to this podcast is crazy. And I think this is good for them because what we need to do is nurture individuality, but without projecting our own sort of adult worries and fears onto our children. What is the answer to doing that?
Well, this is like a horrible story because it makes me feel like the world's worst parent. And I'll tell it to you. So our son we found out that he had like profound dyslexia. He ends up going to a school for kids with language-based learning styles. And then he was going to transfer back to like a regular public school in the 7th grade. And at this time he had blue hair. He loves the gamer ninja. He had his blue hair was so cool. I love it. And as we were nearing him starting this new school, I started to get worried. I started to get worried that if he shows up at a new school in the 7th grade with blue hair, that he would get picked on and he would get bullied. And so I started to let my worries literally bubble over. And I started to say to him, hey, you want to get a haircut before school? Hey, do you think we should cut the tips off? Hey, what do you think about the blue hair? Hey, like I started to just nudge him. And then, of course, our older daughters, his older sisters, pile on and are like, dude, you're not going to roll into that school with blue hair. It's not like you're a star lacrosse player. You do musical theater and you play on the girls' field hockey team. I think you might want to cut your blue hair off, buddy. Like they literally, and we're not like it's literally out of, please, dear God, he had just been bullied at a camp. Don't let him roll into a school and have this happen again. It was all out of love. And ultimately, a couple days before school, Oak goes, I think I want to get my hair cut. He acquiesces. And upon reflection, here's what I realized. We meant well, but parenting styles are often about compliance, and they're often driven by your ego and your desire to protect your kid or not have that kid or whatever. And so you end up sending these messages either overtly, you're not doing musical theater because of your own bullshit, or you send these messages very, what's the other word? Subtly, or not so subtly, because you're worried, you're protecting them, you're concerned because you don't understand them. And the message that I realize now that I was sending to him is, I'm not accepting you for who you are. And until you do as I say, that's when I'll like you. Until you look how I want you to look or do the activities that I want you to do, that's when you're okay. But who you are is not okay. And you got to change in order to get my approval. And you see, I think that's the heart of where we break this relationship with ourselves. we start to tell ourselves there's something wrong with me as I am. And in order to fit into this group, or in order to make my mother happy, or in order to get my dad to stop griping at me, I have to be somebody I'm not. We become our own sorting hat as a means to protect ourselves from criticism, as a means to comply and make everybody feel okay, and as a means to fit in with people. And that's where it begins. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I feel like if you can stand in front of a mirror and see your blue hair and high five it, it doesn't matter what anybody else says, including your mother. And when you're a kid, you didn't have a choice. You didn't. You were just doing what you needed to do to get by. And it's a very tame story. But the truth is, and there are a lot of teachers that understand that, and a lot of your listeners that understand this, there are kids who can't reveal their true identity because it's not safe for them to do so in their homes or in their schools. And so when you're a kid, you often don't have a choice, but there's a fundamental flaw in human wiring, which is when that kind of bullshit happens to you, no human being who's a child has the life perspective or experience or the brain wiring to be objective and go, these freaking adults are screwed up, man. Somebody call the police. You know, if this kid's bullying me, I bet his dad's an asshole. Like, you have no ability. So every one of us goes, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. And in order to get the love and the likes and to be seen and supported for who I am, I got to hide. I got to change. I can't be myself. And that's where it begins.
It makes me like I started getting tears in my eyes, because this is one of those things that I think is just universal. I think every person listening at one point or currently struggles with believing that they are worthy of a high five. What is happening? That they're worthy of a high five, unless they've done something extraordinary, and I'm among them.
I want to share with you, Dave, something from our 21-year-old daughter, who is a junior at the University of Southern California. She is in the thick of the comparison game. Let's think about everybody being 21, being at a university in Southern California in particular, where everybody and then some is better than the next. And so she goes, I've been high-fiving myself in the mirror. And I say, well, how's the high five working? And she said, I don't know what to say. Because sometimes I look in the mirror and I think, you're not as pretty as the rest of the girls. And I said, then she goes, I think I need to start practicing the law of attachment. I think she meant the law of attraction. And I said, well, what do you mean you don't know what to say? You don't have to say anything, because the high five gesture communicates it. And then she says this, but what if I didn't accomplish anything? Like I didn't work out, or I didn't go to the studio and record a song. Should I still high five myself after my shower if I didn't accomplish anything? And I said, how sad is this?
It's making me cry.
You keep showing up every day trying to do a little better. That alone makes you worthy of support and celebration. Ken, we have the secret to life and happiness and motivation backwards. You think you need to accomplish something to be worthy of a high five. And then she writes, you mean the fact that I exist deserves a high five? Yes. When you high five yourself for just standing there in front of the mirror, you are demonstrating that you see you and all your potential, you support and believe in you, and that no matter what, today you've got your own back, even if you didn't exercise and even if you didn't write a song. What do you think about what I just wrote? She says, I love it. It makes me feel great. And then I said, can you explain why? Because you explaining it will help me explain it to everyone else. She says, well, what it shows you is that you don't actually know how much you're always doing. And I think that once you start high-fiving yourself every single morning, it almost allows you to be more present to everything you are doing. And it helps you recognize all those small victories. And when you compile those small victories, you can recognize all of your big accomplishments, big and small, and eventually come to believe that not only are you worth it, but you can do anything.
Wow. it makes me like I started getting tears in my eyes because this is one of those things that I think is just universal. I think every person listening at one point or currently struggles with believing that they are worthy of what is happening? That they're worthy of a high five. Yeah. Unless they've, done something extraordinary. And I'm among them, you know?
Yeah. And I know how committed you are with your daughter in particular in giving her the tools to believe in herself in a world, and all of your kids, Dave, like it comes through in everything that you do as a father. And, it's hard because, she can write something heartbreaking. Like, I'm not the prettiest one, but what if I didn't go to the gym or I didn't write that song because she's in music school? And it breaks your heart.
Yeah.
But I can't have this breakthrough for her. She has to learn how to treat herself in a way that is kind and is compassionate. And so do you.
This is everything, though. This is like, if you're listening, go ahead and rewind 10 seconds, because this ends up being everything. Someone else cannot tell you that you are loved, that you are lovable, that you're worthy or enough. It's a thing that you have to, it's an exercise in self-discovery, and that you have to yourself figure it out. And it's not that makes it easy, but it's only when you do that you'll see it. And I truly believe that.
I do too.
You mentioned children in that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a very powerful section in the book. Can't remember the subtitle you gave to it, but it was essentially saying the added benefit of adopting not just the high five habit. The book is full of other practical things.
I was like, should we call it the high five habits? Should we call it the high five habit? Should we call it and I made a strategic decision to only call it the high five habit, because if there was one tool that got out, I wanted this one. And I knew if we called it the high five habits, everything would be, well, what are the high five habits? And it would become a listicle in terms of the PR. So that was strategic, even though there were like 11 tools in the book around self-empowerment.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on my struggles with book titles. But I think it's a great title. And there's lots of practical tools in the book beyond the high five habits. But I love that bit where you were talking about that doing this stuff, it kind of helps you to be a better role model to your kids. You show them how you manage difficult situations. You show them that you're worthy of compassion to yourself.
Yes.
And I kind of reread that several times, because if I'm brutally honest, I think one of my own drives to become a better person, a calmer person, a less judgmental person, a less reactive person, has been to be a better dad. Because when you see things about yourself that you're being reflected back through your kids, you're like, hey, you know what? I could either tell them not to do that, or I could take a look in the mirror and try and figure this stuff out myself. So I thought that was really powerful. I think
not easy. There's a story in there that I didn't include that I can tell you that really kind of drives us home. I remember maybe I did put it in the book. I don't remember at this point. I was taking a selfie with our two daughters who are 23 and 21. And I know what it was. We were talking about just body image.
Yeah.
And one of our daughters is very tall and lean, and the other one is shapely and gorgeous and amazing and the best human ever. They both are. But and the reason why I sort of paused there is because I was making a mistake that all mothers tend to make, which is we compliment our daughters for their beauty and not for the fact that they're loyal and they're smart and they're amazing human beings and they're hardworking. So because it was done to us and the brain learns patterns, we're just repeating the patterns with our daughters. And so it's super important, I learned this late, to compliment attributes that you like, rather than constantly complimenting outfits and nails and hairstyles and the way that they look. So that's one thing that you can do. And we were talking about this, and I was like, why do you guys I see you and you're so freaking beautiful. Like, I looked like a troll
when I was in college. Like I had a Dorothy Hamill haircut, and then I had a flash dance perm. I mean, you guys look like unbelievable. And I'm like, why are you so critical? Like you constantly look in the mirror. Where does that come from? And without skipping a beat, my 21-year-old daughter turned to me and said, "It comes from you." And I said, What do you mean? She said, "Are you kidding me? Have you ever heard yourself talk about yourself?" I'm like, "What? No. What are you talking about?" She's like, "Every time we take a photo with you, do you know what you say about the photo?" I'm like, "No." She goes, "You go, do I really look like that?" And Mom, we think you're beautiful. So if we think you're beautiful and you're constantly criticizing and questioning what you look like, why would we ever trust you when you tell us that you think we're beautiful? And I was like, mic drop. Okay, that's 10 years of therapy. You can just put that on my credit card, girls, because clearly I fucked you up. But so, and I laugh because otherwise, what are you going to do? But seriously, I think that, your kids are watching and they learn patterns. And one of the things that I'm excited about in terms of the tools in this book is I do believe, in terms of winning deep, that there is an opportunity not for you to just break your own habits that are self-destructive, but you have the chance to break generational habits.
Yeah.
Because the self-criticism didn't start with you. The self-rejection didn't start with you. This is your father's voice or your mother's voice. And before that, it was your grandmother's voice or your grandfather's voice. Nobody taught them how to feel worthy and to love themselves and to accept themselves and to forgive themselves. And so when you start to take on this project of really practicing and demonstrating to yourself every single morning in the mirror that you like you, that you think you're worth it, that you respect you, that you're going to validate you, that you will support you, that builds and it breaks cycles and cycles of generations of self-criticism. And that means that it can stop with you and you can show your kids a different way because, I've also know that, look, your kids are going to, you can't avoid comparison. You can't avoid those feelings of insecurity. You can't avoid looking around at the world and seeing places that you fit in and places that you don't. And it's heartbreaking when you're a parent and you get a text from one of your kids going, "Why does nobody like me?" Or "Why won't anybody ask me to the dance?" Or "Why am I the biggest one of all my friends?" Or "the brownest," or "the darkest," or "Why do I have kinky hair?" Or "Why am I so tall?" Or "Why do I have to these," like this sort of like, if I could only be different.
Yeah.
You won't be able to change that. But through the high five habit and the tools in this book, you can demonstrate what self-acceptance looks like. So eventually they will learn how to do it for themselves.
I think that would be my hope too, because my kids are a bit younger than yours, 11 and 8 at the moment. And I do think these two habits that we've spoken about, and there's many more in the book, but 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah.
And the high five habits, I can see no reason why they can't be adopted into every school.
Of course.
So many teachers listen to this podcast, and I would love some of them to get in touch and let us know, right?
We have teachers all over the world right now that put a mirror up in the classroom and the kids walk in and high five the mirror. And, as part of bullying programs, the high five or the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a tool that is like, look, when they're like, I'm going to, don't you dare tell your parents, and you start to go down the road of, but everybody will hate me. And this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, tell the freaking adults. Like one of the most painful design flaws in a human being is that when you're a kid and something bad happens to you, you do not have the life experience or the wiring, unfortunately, to go, "Oh my God, if this loser's doing this to me, I can't imagine what's happening at home." Or "These adults are screwed up. Somebody call the frickin' police because you don't get to talk to me or treat me like that."
No, every kid, it's the design of a human being to go, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
You aim it back at yourself. And you use this abusive or toxic or negative behavior or treatment. And because you don't know any better. It's the way our brains are designed. It's what we all do. We think there's something wrong with us. And it's because you don't have the support system. You don't have the life experience. And so that's what the brain does.
Yeah.
And I think that I have been doing that to myself for 40 years. And it's only in discovering this high five habit that I've been able to break it and be like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just a human being that feels a bunch of stuff. It's doing a bunch of stuff, that's trying her best. And life is a lot richer and more rewarding and full of joy and meaning when you can start every day knowing that you like the person you're spending your whole life with and that you're going to support them no matter what, no matter how much they weigh, no matter how little money they have, no matter how many freckles or how kinky your hair is, that you got you. And today we're going to go to Austin, Texas, where Wendy has a question. And it's a question that I am sure you're going to be able to relate to. Her question is about a college student that she loves who has come home. College has been canceled, and now she is worried about her college student's mental health. And so if there's somebody in your life, a student, a kid in particular, but anybody who you're concerned about their self-care, about their mental state, about whether or not they are depressed, this is a really important question for you to not only listen to, but the advice is really important too. So let's go to Wendy in Austin, Texas.
Hey, Mel Robbins, this is Wendy McGlamory. I'm coming to you from Austin, Texas. My question for you is, how can we best support and encourage our 22-year-old college senior? We packed her up and now she's home. She's on task, it seems to be, for her education. What I'm most concerned about is her self-care. She's sleeping incredibly late into the day. Her sleep cycle is really bad. She's not exercising at all. She's eating rather poorly. She hasn't made her bed. She's sort of sleeping in a mess in her room. She has not unpacked. So we're just trying to figure out the best tips and tools that we can try to just encourage her, love on her, and support her during this time. Thank you.
Oh, Wendy, I love the question. I hate the issue, but I love the question. We have 2 college-age students here at home with us as well. Like your daughter, they had college canceled. So our daughters are 21 and 19, but unlike your daughter, they did not have graduation canceled. They did not have senior year canceled, which is a whole nother ball of loss to have to deal with. And so here's number one. The hardest thing in the world as a parent is to see one of your kids struggling. And even harder than seeing them struggle is what you're going to have to do in order to love her, as you said, and support her. And what you're going to have to do at this moment in time is figure out how to let her help herself. Because I want to put this in perspective for you. When you get college canceled, when you're a teenager, when you're a college student, and you suddenly find yourself quarantined back home with mom and dad, this is the worst nightmare of your life. Because not only have you lost your friends, not only have you lost your college experience, but you have also lost your independence. And there is nothing that will backfire more than if you try to push her, or you start making suggestions, or you start to do what all of us moms do when our kids are struggling, swoop in and fix it. And the other thing that you need to manage is there are going to be small ways in which you're going to want to make comments, and those comments can backfire and can come out as a slam. And so the secret here is figuring out what kind of support she needs and wants, and how to deliver that support so it is supportive, not nagging and oppressive. So here's some things I want you to think about. Number one, the number one thing you need to deal with is your daughter just simulating dorm life at home, or is she depressed? Because when you tell me that your daughter is sleeping halfway through the day, that she is sleeping in a mess of a room, she is in PJs or sweats all day, that to me sounds a little bit like dorm life. When you and I are not at the dorm, our kids are doing things that would mortify us. But they walk around in their PJs. They're up till 4 o'clock in the morning. They're sleeping until 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're partying way too much. They're on their phones with their friends. They're playing the music too loud. They're not exercising. They're eating like shit. And you have to remember that right now, April 13th, she probably would have been living like that in her dorm. But because she has just experienced a massively destabilizing change in her life, and she is likely grieving the loss of graduation, the loss of her independence, the loss of her senior year, the loss of all of those expectations, I also want you to make sure she's not depressed. So depression, as you know, is a mood disorder where you feel overwhelming sadness and a sense of loss. And so I would take the extra step before we jump into the ways in which you can figure out what support she needs and how to support her. I just take the extra step, given the amount of loss that she's just experienced, to make sure that she's not depressed. She's just simulating dorm life at home. So I would, number one, even though she's graduated and school's kind of canceled, although she's doing classes, I'd call the student health services. I'd call the dean of students office. Oh, I guess you wouldn't call, you'd email, right? Because nobody's there. I don't know. I would reach out to them and I would get their advice on a checklist to look for. The second thing I would do, as weird as it sounds, because she's 22 years old, if she's not got a primary care doctor, call the line at the pediatrician's office, and the nurses that typically answer questions at pediatricians' offices are rock stars. And so I'm sure they can give you some warning signs. So now I want to give you a couple strategies that you can use in order to be sneaky about giving your daughter the support she needs. So one thing that you can do is you can say to her, you know, it's been a couple weeks since you've been home, and I know that it's just the worst situation that we're in, and it's not fair, and you miss your friends. But even though you're still technically in college, you still don't seem like yourself. You're sleeping a lot. You seem more disorganized than usual. What's going on with you? How are you feeling? And you can even say, because, you know, social distancing is one thing, but I really am starting to get concerned that you're socially isolating. What do you feel? And so I would just ask her point blank, this does not seem like you. What are you feeling? And the second thing I would do is I would say that you've started to realize how much she's just had to lose, and how sad and frustrated she must be to lose her independence, to lose time with her friends, to lose graduation, to probably feel wildly uncertain about what the next chapter of her life looks like. And so I would ask her about what she's feeling. And then the best thing that I've found with my kids is I have asked them what support they need. And one way you can kind of get into this without it being really deep is at dinner every night, I would go around the table with your family and I'd say, oh, well, what does everybody have coming up tomorrow and what support do you need? And as you talk about your routine, Wendy, ask your daughter, what routine do you need in order to get everything done? You're doing a dynamite job with your classes, but what routine do you need in order to take care of your mood, and your mental health, and making sure you're getting in time to see your friends, at least over FaceTime. Because what you really want to be doing is getting her talking about what she's feeling, rather than you making suggestions about what she's doing. Because if you can get your daughter to start talking about how she's feeling, that gives you a window to open up and say, not this is what we're going to do to fix it, but what would you like to do to address it? And how can I support you in addressing it? She's lived independently for you for 4 years. Based on the sites that she's on and talking to her friends, she's probably very well aware of how sad and the loss that she is. And she's probably also aware that she needs a routine and she needs to exercise. But the key is you not suggesting it. The key is get her to talk about how she's feeling, and then ask her what support she thinks she needs, and ask her what she wants you to do to support her. Now, I'm going to give you a couple ideas in case she says, I don't know what to do. I just feel sad. If she says that, number one, she needs a routine. But again, when you suggest it, you got to say, I need you to create it, but I can support you in it. What time do you think you should get up? Do you want to exercise? Do you think that would make a difference? What time do you think you should do it? So you're going to ask leading questions, because again, the key with this age, and it's the hardest thing for us parents to do, is we cannot go in and fix this. This is an enormous moment in time where you can teach your daughter the coping skills to be able to pull herself out of a slump. You can teach your daughter how to create a routine for herself. You can teach her to think about what she's feeling and what she can do to address it. And then your job is to give her the emotional support in helping her do it. Now, here's the final thing. So my daughters have all taken on projects. We've got Kendall, who's really gotten into her music. Sawyer has ordered some stuff and she's started painting again, and she's journaling again. And they have both taken on this moment in time to exercise every day, to not drink at night. They're turning this in basically to like some sort of health. I just got to notice that my computer's going to die. Hold on. There we go. So my daughters have taken this moment of time to turn this into a moment where they're really taking care of themselves, and they're watching what they're eating, and they're trying to get in good shape, and they're not drinking that much at night because of just how unhealthy their drinking life had been in college. And I'm really proud of them. But I almost caught myself doing something that we moms do and we don't realize it. So last night, we were all watching the Hunger Games. We've been doing these movie marathons, and we had dinner. It had been an hour and a half, and Kendall came downstairs from being in a class for her music program, and she immediately opened up the cupboard and started taking out chips and all kinds of stuff. It's like 9:30 at night, because again, that's what you do in dorm life, right? And I know her goals. And I almost said, are you sure you want to be eating that chip? And I stopped myself, because again, let's go back to the very beginning. Your kid's worst nightmare is to lose their independence. And so the last thing they want is the oppressive feeling of having mom nagging you all the time, even if it's a nag that we feel is in supportive of their goals. So reel those kind of comments back in and let them make mistakes. Now, when she was done eating, I said to her, can I ask you a question? And she said, yeah. I said, I know you're working really hard, and I know you beat yourself up when you then blow what you said you were going to do. If I see you reaching for something, do you want me to say something, or should I just keep your mouth shut? And she said, keep your mouth shut. I'm like, okay. So again, Wendy, do what you're doing, love her up, make sure she's safe, distinguish between dorm life and depression, get that checklist in place, and then you're going to either, hey, you're not like yourself. Are you okay? What's going on? How are you feeling? Like, just get her to talk about her feelings. Keep in mind that she's grieving a lot of loss right now. and then ask her what she thinks she needs. And then ask her to tell you what support she needs from you. If she says, I have no idea, then again, ask, would you like me to give you some suggestions? Because she may or may not. You've got to let her take the lead with you nudging and supporting her all the way. I hope that helps. I'm practicing it every day here. There's some days I'm better at it than others. So also give yourself a little bit of a break, okay? We're doing the best that we can. Thank you, Wendy. This is a loss of independence.
Yes. For
And
both of you.
Yes, but for them primarily, because this is a moment in their life where they're creating their life. They've just escaped your ass. They are out of the house. And now they've been clawed back in and they're stuck with you. And so you represent everything that they're angry about, because now they're back in the childhood home. And so even if you're not a micromanager, even if you're not like bickering at your kids all the time, anything you say is a reminder that they're not back at their apartment. They're not back at the dorm. They're not able to be with their friends, and their frustration is aimed at your ass. And so it's really hard. And look, I mean, your perspective is based on the experiences that you have. And so if you're a young adult, you don't have the same experiences that we have. So perspective is really difficult to grasp. And their whole world right now has just died. The whole world has just died in terms of everything that they love and dream about. And they don't see a different future right now. And so back with you, worst nightmare, which means you're the one that is going to get all the anger.
I'm not even in that situation. I'm sweating right now thinking about it.
Well, you know what's helped me a lot, because I went through again, week 1 was all adrenaline and get here and wash your hands and hypervigilance, and you still have to have that. And week 2 was, let's turn this into a project, which only annoys everybody. And then week 3 was sort of like, holy shit, this is the new normal, and trying to have everybody develop their own routine. But I've completely given up the little nagging piece of, do you have to leave your dish in the thing? You know, I haven't gone upstairs 3.5 weeks. I don't even want to see what the second floor of this house looks like right now.
Don't worry about that
Completely.
later, right?
And so it's what's great though is that any reminder of, could you pick this up? Could you do this? Reminds them that they have no independence right now. So I've dropped all of that.
Yes.
And I'd rather do dishes all day than deal with a teenager that's snarky and aiming it at me. And it's made a huge difference. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Unless you can get an 8-year-old off the couch 24 hours a day.
What I would rather do is get the guilt off your back. Because you're doing the best that you can. You are not expected to be an expert at this. And there are going to be some days where you're energized and you've got an activity planned. And there are going to be other days where you're just like, I just can't even. As long as she's not drowning in the toilet or screaming, we're good here. We're good. Yes. Here's the thing I want you to understand. Your daughter will not remember the specifics about what happened during this period of time, but she will remember how she felt being in the house. And if you're taking the guilt and the pressure off your shoulders, and you're giving yourself room to have good days and bad days and rockin' days as a mom and I'm out as a mom days, she will remember a calm and grounded experience. Me personally, I went upstairs for the first time to my 15-year-old son's room. I opened up the door because I kept yelling at him that dinner was ready. And there was so much shit on the floor. Every blanket from the bed, every pillow on the bed, everything he's worn for the last 2 weeks. The bottom sheet on the mattress was half pulled off, and so the mattress was kind of bare. He had Cheetos bags on the bed. He had empty glass. Like, I now know where all the glasses were because there were 8 of them in his room. It smelled like a mix of dirty socks and a locker room and Axe I like cranked open the door. I was so triggered because I thought, you've got to clean. And then I thought, what am I doing? What do I care? We're in a freaking pandemic. If this kid is happy living in this hovel, the fuck do I care? And I said, dude, dinner's ready. Come on down. And I shut the door. That's it. I figure when he's tired of turning his underwear inside out or whatever it is he's doing to manage his laundry, because I'm not sure when he's done it last, he'll ask for help. But if you're calm and not pounding yourself to be having arts and crafts scheduled and this scheduled and the things scheduled and virtual play dates this and this thing that, I mean, keep in mind, you're not working from home. You're quarantined in a pandemic, trying to get work done and trying to keep your house peaceful.
Yeah.
So take the guilt off, let her sit on the couch. She will be just fine. And if you're calm and happy, it'll be an awesome experience for all of you.
If you have adult kids that are not coming around the house as much as you would like them to, let me tell you what you and your spouse need to stop doing. You need to stop using guilt as a way to manipulate your kids to come home and spend time with you. If your kids are not spending the amount of time that you want them to spend with you, you need to ask yourself a simple question. What am I doing that makes them not want to spend more time with me? Here's the deal. Your adult kids are busy, they have jobs, they have friends, they have a life, and they may not be coming around because they're busy, but more likely than not, they're not coming around because it's a pain in the ass to be around you. Because when they do come home, guess what they hear? I wish you were here more. I wish that you would stay long. Why don't you come around more? You're so busy. So it's not any fun. And so here's the thing that every parent with adult kids needs to stop doing. You cannot punish your kids and expect them to change their behavior. You need to create a situation where when your kids are home, it's so fun and it's so easy and it's so guilt-free that guess what? They want to come home more often. And so guilt has never worked in the history of the planet. Yes, our parents may have done it to us, but guess what? We resented them for it. We went because we were dragged there. When you drop the guilt and you become the kind of parent that just expresses the truth that's underneath guilt, which is, I'm proud of you, I freaking love you, I wish you weren't so busy because I would love to see you more, how can I fit more into your life without it being a pain in the ass? When you come at a level that is clear and that is connected versus trying to manipulate somebody to do something that you want them to do, which is what guilt is. Yes, it's a disguise for love, but it's love turned into manipulation. So if your adult kids are not making the time to come around enough, you have to stop and ask yourself why. Take a look in the mirror. I guarantee you it has something to do with how they feel when they're with you. And so here's what you can do about it. If you want to see your kids more often, go see them. Make the effort. Because it's really about you connecting with them. It's not about you checking boxes about how many times or how many nights they come home. Express your happiness, express your pride, express whatever it is that makes you sad, but stop with the guilt. You know you're guilting somebody when you say something with the intent to make them feel bad for the decisions that they've made. Okay, a few weeks ago, Kendall interrupted me while I was on a Zoom therapy session. I'm trying to train you that when I'm on a Zoom call, that you're going to get filmed. This will work. And after she left the room, I told my therapist, she does this to me a lot. I'll tell her that I'm going to be in a meeting for an hour, and 25 minutes into the meeting, she comes into the office. She asks me something very inconsequential that doesn't really matter, like, when are we having dinner? Or do you know where this is? Something that could have waited. And it kind of frustrates me, drives me crazy. And my therapist told me, oh, well, that's a classic thing that people do. It's called borrowing functioning. And I'm like, what? I'd never heard of it. Had you ever heard of it? And it's when you feel a moment of anxiety or boredom or some uncomfortable feeling,
And instead of being able to just ground yourself down and give yourself the soothing or the support that you need, you borrow that functioning that you don't have for yourself by going to somebody else. So by interrupting me in a moment where maybe she felt a little insecure, a little bored, a little distracted, maybe you wanted to procrastinate, instead of giving herself what she needed to get back on track, she finds somebody else to give her what she needs. She's seeking a little reassurance. She's seeking to be told everything's okay. Is that right?
Yeah, some of the times.
So what have you noticed since, because I wanted to make this video because Kendall just said to me, you know, ever since that conversation we had about borrowing functioning, I noticed something. So what did you notice?
I was just saying that ever since she told me that it like pissed her off that I would interrupt her, I've just stopped coming up to her office during the days. At least when I know she's busy. Like today I even opened the door and I heard her in her recording voice talking, and so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna shut the door. Whereas normally I would just like come up and try to like do some signal to her or something stupid, but I don't really understand where the psychology comes in. I've just regulated it and kind of shut it down. I don't bother you as much anymore.
Well, is it that you don't bother me, or is it that you've noticed that you didn't actually need me in that moment?
Yeah, a bit of both. I mean, a lot of the times I'm just bored and I want company. And I'm like, what's up? It's not even about being anxious necessarily.
Well, that is kind of an uncomfortable feeling, to be bored and to be alone. And not knowing how to deal with boredom or being alone is why we seek a distraction. And for some people, the distraction is going and finding somebody else, which is totally fine. For other people, it might be drinking or vaping or, you know, having some weed because you want to soothe that uncomfortable feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I don't want you to interrupt me. Absolutely. I want you to come up here. It makes me sad to think you wouldn't come up to the office because you think that I'm too busy for you. That's not the point at all. The point is, in those moments where I take the time to say, hey, I'm going to be on a phone call for an hour, or I'm doing a speech live for a client, knowing that in those moments, there's still the desire to check in, the desire to interrupt, the desire to...
Yeah, well, also I come to you because you don't get mad. You're like, hey, what's up? Whereas like when I go interrupt Dad, he's like, yes.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because when it happened in therapy, during that therapy call, my therapist said, well, you realize you just invited her. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, when she opened the door and said, you're busy, you said, come on in. And you're very welcoming. And I said, well, of course I was.
Well, do you want me to come in and say, are you busy? Or do you not want me to come in?
I think if I've told you that I need the hour, unless there's an emergency, well, I'd rather you not come in.
You don't always tell me like, hey, from 9 to 5 today, I'm going to be on and off Zoom calls. Don't come in. Like whenever you have a speech or you have some big meeting, you text in our family group chat and you're like, don't come up. And I don't.
Yeah.
But like throughout the day.
No, I love for you to poke your head in. And if I kind of hold up the hand, it means I'm in the middle of something.
Got it.
And I also, when she said to me, what if you would have turned to Kendall when she opened the door and said, I told you I was going to be in a meeting for an hour. I was like, I couldn't say that to her. And she said, why?
Well, I would be like, geez.
Right?
I'd be like, whoa, okay.
I know. And she said, well, that's part of the problem, is that you're not establishing healthy boundaries between you two. You have allowed yourself to become the coping mechanism that she uses when there's a feeling that she's not comfortable with. And by saying, I told you I needed an hour, I'll be out in 20 minutes, it also reminds you that you can rely on yourself to get yourself through those moments of boredom. What do you think?
Makes sense.
I don't know if I could say that to you, though, because I feel like it's a rejection.
It's not. You're fine.
Okay, I'll try it. Well, I love you.
I love you too.
I don't know how to respond when you say you're slammed, because it really triggers my anxiety. And
that you're more slammed?
No, that I go into fix-it mode as your mom, and I want to take away the fact that you seem stressed out, but I know that that's not the right response. So when you come upstairs and you walk in and you are wanting to talk about how slammed you feel.
It's not even like about trying to get you to do anything. It's just like shedding off my...
So you're shedding your anxious feelings off on me?
No.
It works, because then I get anxious about what...
Just out. Like, just off of me. Like, saying it just is like a release of it. Like, I keep telling myself, like, oh my God, I'll be fine. I can get this done.
Yes, you can.
And in my head, I'm like, I don't know.
You definitely can. Here's what I just learned from that I literally need like an emotional umbrella, so that when you come up and shed and start spewing things.
Every single time I come up, you think I do that?
There's a lot of times where you check in to expel your stress. And I'm happy to be your stress receptacle, but I have a fix-it response to my children's problems, and then you get angry because I try to give you advice. What I hear is I should not jump into fix-it mode. I should just listen to your issues. Oh, and then I should say, do you want advice or do you need me to listen?
I don't think I like when you say that.
Why?
Because when you say, do you want advice or do you want me to listen, it just makes me think that you're already thinking about advice to give.
Well, of course I am, because that's my nature. I have over-functioning anxiety.
Okay, well... Then,
my way to deal with...
Okay, well then, you keep being like, I'm a fixer. Well then, fix yourself to not do that.
I am, by inserting the sentence, do you want advice or should I listen?
Or you could just practice turning off that advice-giving side of you and just listen.
True. So can we role play this? You come up and say, and then, okay, go ahead.
I'm stressed. I have so much work this week. No, because then I just know you're holding it in. You have so much you want to say. No,
it's true.
No. I come up and I say, you always tell me when people are going through shit, tell them what they want to hear because it makes them feel better instead of fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what I was saying. Silly how that works. Wait, no, I actually had something good that I wanted to say.
I'm just listening.
Okay. Oh my God, you. Like, you always tell me, like, tell them what they want to hear. So, like, when somebody's going through something or they're having a really rough day, instead of trying to fix it or instead of trying to give them advice, you're always like, acknowledge
what they're going through.
Yeah, like, God, that sucks. Oh, I hate that. Or,
I hate it.
Or I walk up and I say, oh my God, I have so much work. And you say, oh, I know what that feels like. I hate that feeling. Is there anything I can do to support you?
Okay, let's try that. Go ahead.
I'm so stressed.
Ugh, I hate that feeling. I know exactly what that feels like.
But then you normally go,
that way.
Oh, I know exactly how that feels. But you know what I do to stop it? And then I'm like...
I know exactly what that feels like. I'm going through it right now because I feel really behind the ball. Is there anything I can do to help you?
No. I need to help myself. But thanks for listening.
All right, anything else that I can do to help you?
I'm just here to procrastinate.
We welcome procrastinators.
Me telling you that I have so much work is me procrastinating my work.
Okay, terrific.
Am I interrupting your work?
I didn't have the sign on the door, so no.
I probably wouldn't have seen it even if you did.
That's not true. You're good about that. Sort of.
I never understand what Dad is actually feeling at the time, which can trigger my mood.
Okay.
Because sometimes Dad seems like he's pissed off, and I'm like, why are you pissed off? And he's like, I'm not.
So in other words, you don't like to be around Dad when he seems to be in a mood that he's annoyed about something. Correct? Is that good? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So what percentage of the time is Dad in that mood?
I wouldn't say
Speak freely.
I wouldn't say he's in that mood. I'd say that his tone of voice and his body language and his gestures and everything make him feel like he is in that mood.
Okay, and you don't like to be around him when he's in that mood.
You know, sometimes dad is sometimes in a very good mood where he's like all over the place and he's excited.
See, you know what's interesting? You're afraid to actually criticize your dad, aren't you?
I am, because I respect him so much.
Okay.
But it's like, he does have sometimes, which is amazing, when he's like happy to, where it seems happy to be talking to you, and other times he's just kind of like, What goes through my mind whenever he seems in that mood is like, this is a terrible mindset to be in, but it's, I did something wrong.
Oh.
Because he has such a serious way of like addressing and talking to you, because he like always either asks a question, or when he texts me, which he doesn't do very often. Okay, great. Let me pull out my phone right now. And let me explain something to you guys. Because I was genuinely terrified.
You were genuinely terrified when you got this text from Dad?
Dad goes home. The last time he texted me was a week ago, and it said, can you let the dog in? On Saturday, I get a text from him, and all it says is hi. Now, there's no like, hey, how you doing? There's no like, it's just hi. No, nothing else after that. And so through my mind, I'm like, well, what does he want right now? Like, he doesn't text me very often. What is he like trying? Is he trying to tell me something? He's trying to get me to do something. So I call him because I don't want to text him. So I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, are my skis there? I was like, are your skis there? Could you just have texted me, are your skis there?
Wait, so can I back the truck up? You got a text from Dad that said hi, and that one word sent you into a spiral thinking you had done something wrong?
Yes. Listen. Yes. Dad doesn't text me very much. He texts me when he needs something.
Yep.
And usually when he needs something, he states what he needs without like saying like, how was your day? He just says like, can you let the dog out? Can you like go get me a glass of water?
Yeah.
He doesn't like...
It's very transactional.
Very transactional. So when he says hi, and he's never really said hi to me before, and it's been a full week since we've texted, I feel like I like he might be trying to like ease into it.
Here's what I'm getting from you. You're scared of Dad.
No,
you love him so much.
I respect
you are
him
terrified
so
to disappoint him.
I respect him so much, and I love him so much that I'm terrified to disappoint him. So whenever he like, it's very scary.
But you've tied up somebody being annoyed with you with whether or not they love you. That's the point. You have tied up somebody liking you and being happy with what you're doing with whether or not they love you. Your father loves you more than just about anything in his life. There is nothing you could do. You could take a dump on his office chair and he would not stop loving you.
No,
you could crash this car and he would not stop loving you.
No, I would
You
never.
could get arrested and he would not stop loving you. Okay. He would be like not happy about those things, but he would not stop loving you. What are you going to do about that?
Okay, look, I don't really need to change this because I always like joke about it with him. I'm always like, Dad, what's wrong? That's my go-to. When I think he's mad at me, I always say, Dad, what's wrong?
Well, I think you should have a conversation.
And I'm ready for him to be like,
you. He has never said that in his life. We need to have a talk. All right, I got to stop and get some cheap chicken for the dog because he's got diarrhea.
Yo, what's up, guys? We're back from the grocery store.
Okay.
What's our topic, Mom?
I don't know. You got a question for me?
My question to you is, do you have a favorite child?
Do I have a favorite child?
Yes.
Of course I have a favorite child. Of course. I mean, does that surprise you?
Not really.
I mean, what's your opinion that I have a favorite? Do you want to know who it is?
Oh, I mean, I don't know who it is, but I know what your like system is. Should I explain your system?
Explain my system.
I remember you telling me once that your system was, it's always up for grabs.
That's right. My favorite child depends on who's pissing me off the least.
It's a very fair way to go by.
Because to me, favorite means who do you like the most?
And so at the time, who do you like the most?
And I love all three of you as deeply as a human being could love another human being. But depending upon how we are interacting in the moment. I may not like you very much, but that doesn't mean I don't love you deeply. And it is a profound breakthrough. It was for me to realize that my own parents could love me and really hate the way I was acting at the same time. And so to understand that your parent never takes away their love, it's just a matter of whether or not you're enjoyable or irritating. And that's why I say, I love all of you, and whoever's my favorite is up for grabs at any moment. And if that's something you actually care about as a kid, you want to be your parent's favorite, then you can work to make that happen. But you have my love unconditionally. Whether or not I like you is a different story.
Welcome back to What the Mel with your host, Oakley Robbins.
The people have spoken.
Okay.
They have asked that you join me in more videos.
Okay. They just love me more than you.
They do. And I don't blame them. So in this episode of What the Mel, we have 4 questions. And if you have questions for me and Oakley, you can email them to whatthemel@melrobbins.com.
Okay.
What?
I don't know where this title came from.
You don't like it? You like it?
No, it's
you
good.
approve?
It's good. There you go. That was gonna be me, but it's like whatever.
What?
Remember when you told me it was gonna be like the Oakley something?
Well, do you want to turn this into a different show? I would love to.
This is your show.
I would love to
This
do
is
a
your show.
weekly show.
No, this is your
Why
show.
don't we let everybody decide?
This is your show.
Why don't we let everybody decide? We're going to let everybody decide.
Who should be the host of the show? That's what the decision is supposed to be. Me or her? Easy pick. Okay. Let's go.
All right, let's go. Hi, Mel and Oakley. I just want to ask your advice. I'm 17. This has been going on since I was 12. When I'm with cooler or popular guys, I feel inferior and worthless, which affects me. And weirdly, I try so hard to impress them and be like them, like a chameleon. I try to avoid them, but then I feel left out. Whatever I do, I feel sad or useless. What can I do in order to overcome this?
Like the simple answer is just don't be friends with them in the first place. I mean, you don't have to be friends with the popular people, you know? You should be friends with who you actually like being with. And if you aren't like able to fit in with them, I guess you are because you're like acting like a chameleon is blending in with them. But if you aren't like actually yourself around the popular kids, then those aren't your real friends. So what you should do is you should probably just try and sit with some new people, try and meet some new people, because the popular kids aren't always it, you know? It's kind of weird.
I think most popular pigs.
It's weird when you think about it because nobody really likes the popular kids in the first place. So like, why are they popular?
I don't know. What's your theory on that?
I don't know. They just know a bunch of people, or they're attractive.
Oh, is that what it is?
I think that's what I think.
Do you think the popular kids are the quote attractive ones?
Probably, yeah.
Well, you just started a new school, so I think a lot of people also want to know if he's always been sort of drawn toward the popular kids because he wants them to like him because that will make him feel like he's important, right?
Yeah.
How do you find friends? Because I think a lot of people don't even know if...
It's just like a quick like branch off, like if someone in your class and they say something and you like can like relate to it, you can like walk up to them and like, oh, you like Elmo, I don't know. You like this and I like that. Like we have something in common, and then you can like branch off conversation on that. Or you could try and sit with somebody new at lunch. Like if you know someone but like don't really know them, you could sit with their friend group at the lunch table and like listen to what they're talking about.
What about clubs or sports or that kind of thing?
Always join a club and a sport. Always join a sport or a club or whatever, because that'll get you integrated fast, because there's always going to be older kids who want to help you meet people, and it'll be people with similar interests.
I think that's excellent advice. Tomorrow, sit with new people.
Tomorrow, you don't have to give them like strict advice, you know?
I just feel like, he's like it's Alan. Alan, you got this, dude. Come on.
It takes time.
Okay.
It's not easy. That's like, this is one of those things where it's not like you can just like do it. You gotta like branch out and go out of your comfort zone, and it will take months, maybe.
Months?
Yeah, it could take months.
Oh,
well,
that breaks my heart.
Okay, it could take months because they might not feel comfortable branching out like that. They might not like...
Well, you got to push through that.
You got to push through that, and so that takes time. So it's slow, you know? And when you get a friend, it's not like you guys are best friends from day one. It's like you slowly build up that friendship.
So give yourself a 2-month timeline.
Yeah.
Start sitting with different people during lunch and really work on allowing yourself just to be who you are.
Yeah.
Okay?
Nice.
You got it. Okay, let's go to Amber.
Cut the video.
Why?
Cut back, because we're in like a new segment. Never mind.
Okay, should I turn it off?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you
no,
can help us make it cool.
Just go.
So what do I need to do?
Nothing. You're good.
Okay.
All right, who's next?
Amber. I'm really struggling with my 16-year-old son. He has such anger and just wants us off his back. His lack of motivation to take accountability and not get homework done is making me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
He is totally rebelling and not sure how else to get him to get through to him that school and work ethic do matter. I've tried everything from backing off to trying to make him accountable, but nothing but anger from him help.
That like really depends on your home life, in my opinion, and like how
Say more about that.
How he's grown up. Also, it can be how he's seen his father, maybe.
Ooh.
Or his mom. You know, you take after your parents very much, but I think it could be no. Okay, well.
Go ahead and say it. Just say it.
It's because it's like no kid is born with anger towards his parents.
Yes.
And so he gains the anger throughout his life. So it's not his friends who are making him angry at you guys. It's you guys. It's the parents who are making their kid angry by doing whatever you're doing. And so, yeah, he might not like homework, and yeah, he might not want to do it if he's like angry at you, but that's probably not why he's mad at you. There's always a deeper meaning that you have probably overlooked for a while. Maybe you're like, maybe he has a sibling and you're treating his sibling better than him. You're always like buying his sibling stuff and you're letting his sibling stay up later and stuff like that. Letting him go see his friends while you're keeping him home and not letting him do things and not like getting him things. Or you noticeably care more about the other sibling, which is going to make him mad at you. So, what you need to do, I just have the answer right here. What you need to do is you need to sit down with him and you just need to, before you do that, you need to think about what you could have done. Because sitting down and just saying, I'm sorry, I don't know what I've done, isn't going to help. You need to think about what you've done. Then you need to sit down with him and just talk to him and ask how he feels. And then you can apologize for what you think you could have done. And you can also ask him what you've done if you really don't know. That's what you got to do.
Wow. Go ahead.
Another thing that the parents need to realize, though, is that it's partially not their fault in a way, because they're also parenting how they saw their parents parent them. So they might be unconsciously or like unknowingly parenting the same way. When you grow up and your mom is always yelling at you and you think, I'm never going to yell at my kids, you're probably going to yell at your kids because that's what you know. That's who you saw, and that's what you think parenting is, because that's all you know.
That's true. But your parents are just repeating what was done to them, right or wrong. And until somebody breaks the cycle and patterns that have repeated for generations, they're just going to repeat. And so the good news is you probably have a shot here if you can start having honest conversations with your kids, and particularly your son who's angry. You might have a shot to be the generation that breaks this pattern. That'd be really cool. I want to show you one more thing. We used to talk about this on the talk show all the time. This is called an anger iceberg. And you can see that on an iceberg, there's the tip that you see, but an iceberg goes so much deeper beneath the surface. And anger gets expressed. But what your child is actually feeling are feelings that are much deeper: sadness, frustration, loneliness, invisibility, worthlessness. And that's why you need to sit down and talk about it. Excellent job, Oak.
Woo!
Okay.
Second one down. Are these real people, by the way?
Yes, these are real people.
Like they're going to be watching this video.
I hope so. They asked the questions. Where are you going?
I'm just hungry.
Okay, well, come back here because we've got a question.
Okay.
Katya asks, Mel, you've mentioned in a past video that you let your kids call you out on your behavior. I would love to hear more about that. Do I do that?
Yes, you do.
And what's that like? Typically on my tone. Like the kids will be like, watch your tone.
anger spreads. Stop taking out your work stuff on me. Get off your phone, Mom. What else do you guys call me out on? Okay, well, so how do I respond? Does it work?
Eventually, it works.
What happens? What should you expect if you allow
For you, because everybody's different, when we call you out, there's a brief moment of realization for you. Then you go into annoyance and like anger.
Can you imitate me?
It's fine. It's fine. Like I didn't even want to do that. It's fine. Like you're fine. I'm not mad. I'm fine. Okay? No, we're fine. In the beginning, when you first tell her that what she was doing was wrong, she's annoyed at it. But once you leave her alone, she comes to her senses. She thinks about it. She realizes that she shouldn't have said those things. And she like thanks you for saying it. And she also apologizes for getting like snobby.
Am I getting better? Is there less and less of that bad behavior that you used to call me out on?
Yeah. It's also good. I didn't touch on this, but sometimes I've noticed when a kid like calls out their parent on something, the parent will just like retort to like, I'm older, I know more, stuff like that. And so when she doesn't really like say like, oh, I'm older, I know more than you, it means that she's actually listening to you and she cares what you think.
It's true, I do care what you think.
So 6 hours later, when she comes to apologize, you know that she actually thought about it and she isn't going to do it again. And she usually doesn't. So,
you're helping me be a better person. I can't change my own behavior if I'm unconscious to it, That's why I always ask for you guys to call me out on it. All right, here's another one. Fabiola, I think. I apologize. What do you do when you don't agree with your kids' decisions? I feel terrible when I impose things to my kids, but I'm always confused on where and when to let them decide on things. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
I have a feeling I'm going to get kicked off this show.
No, you're fine. It definitely depends on what the kid wants to do, Like if the kid wants to go like smoke weed and drink alcohol, yeah, you should probably say something. Or like they want to change something major about their looks, you might want to like talk to them about why they want to do that. But like small decisions, I don't think you should like worry about them, I mean, it really depends on the decisions, like the question, like personally, I think I'm not going to say I can't answer it, but it's like, it's kind of hard to wonder what decisions they're making because it could be any decision. Like, do they want to go hang out with their friends and you don't want to let them? Or like, are they trying to stay up late and you don't like that? Or is it like, are they trying to smoke weed in the basement? Like, yeah, it can be a lot of things.
Okay, so here's how I kind of think about this. If it's destructive or dangerous, then you make the decision.
Yeah, definitely.
But otherwise, I think that your job as a parent is to help your kids become who they're meant to be. And the number one skill is self-awareness. And the only way your kids are going to learn how to make decisions is to teach them how to do it. And that always means that you're allowing them to make most decisions for them. And I'm talking teenagers here.
And it also like when they face for like some bad decisions, you might like, if it's not too bad, this might sound strange, but if it's not too bad, then you might let them make it because
YOLO. Stop.
YOLO. The thing is that if a decision is like not too bad, but it can be a little bad, you might want to let them make it because you learn from your actions. And so if they come out of that being like, that sucked, like, why did I do that? They're never going to do it again. And if you stop them from doing it, they might want to do it.
So here's what Chris is fantastic at. My husband, Chris, is fantastic at this. Instead of telling the kids what to do, he talks through the various options and the consequences of said options, because I think that's the art of decision making. Well, this is what has changed the way that I parent, and you're going to hear me say this all the time. I always ask my kids, do you want advice or do you want me to listen? And if there's something that Oakley wants to do that absolutely is not the smartest thing to do, like let's say that he's got a ski race on a Sunday morning and a bunch of his friends are having a sleepover. What I'd say to him is, well, you can make the decision, but I want you to think about what's going to support you.
You could go there tonight and I could pick you up at 11 and you could sleep in your bed. And that way, when you wake up in the morning, you have to go to ski practice and have a big breakfast and get all your stuff together and schlep your stuff to the mountain, you're home. Or you could go there, stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning doing God knows what, wake up in a puddle in the basement with a backache and have I don't know what for breakfast, get your stuff together, and then have to like be late to like, which one actually sounds like the right thing for you?
Mm-hmm.
What would you choose?
Stay at home.
Yeah, see?
It's like you also have next weekend to hang out with your friends.
But you're coaching them on how to think through decisions rather than making the decision for them.
It also doesn't help them because in the future, when they need to actually make big decisions, you spent your whole life making the decisions for them and they don't know what to do. And so then they'll be coming to you to make the decisions for them when you need to let them know that they're an adult now.
Yeah, my theory about why so many kids have anxiety these days is because parents micromanage every aspect of their life. And if you cannot teach your kids how to face uncertainty or how to make a decision and know that even the decisions that you screw up, almost all of them are recoverable in some way. If you can't teach your kids that, you're going to cause anxiety in them. And so decision making and knowing how to make decisions and learning from your mistakes is one of the core skills about being a resilient, confident, self-aware adult. Got it?
Yeah.
Good. All right. What do you want to say to everybody?
Who do you want to host the show next? Me or her? It's an option that you can pick.
What?
The name will change by who's hosting it to what was the one?
What do you want to call it?
What did you call it?
If you call
What'd you call it in the beginning?
Dude, I already have a show called What the Mel.
So
I think you should have your own show.
What the Mel.
I think that
if you want to see who wants to host it in the future, it'll be called What the Oak. If it's me, vote me because.
What if we just spin off your own show?
I'm good. I'd like to take your show. You can make a side show off.
No, what we're going to do is I'm going to keep my advice show and we're going to put out an episode. What if we put out an episode every week?
But if
you just answering a question.
But if they choose me as the host, then that means it becomes my show.
Correct. If enough of you vote that Oakley needs his own show, or just once a week, would you answer 1 or 2 questions about what teams are facing?
Sure. But you need to vote for that. That's not going to come if you don't want it.
How are we going to vote?
Doing something that you don't want.
How are we going to vote? Oh, an IG story poll.
Yeah.
We'll do an IG
story poll. But in the comments, tag me or tag my mom if you want her to vote. Great.
And you can email your questions, what the Mel for right now, at melrobbins.com. And if enough of you vote, we will spin off a teen advice show hosted by Oakley Robbins, guest appearances by Mel Robbins and YOLO. And we'll drop it on YouTube and Twitch.
Not Twitch.
Not Twitch, okay. I don't know. TikTok.
Okay. Well, vote me, obvious answer. On Instagram polls, vote me.
All right, well, I love you. Thank you for being here. In case nobody else tells you, I love you. I believe in you. And I still love you, even though I know you're all going to vote for Oakley. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.